Hello, everybody, and welcome into the arcade. I'm your host, Sand52, also known as Sand, also known as Caleb. We got one quick announcement today. We had Cozy Cylinder's episode come out today, actually, at 6 a.m. this morning, so I hope you guys have sat down, listened to it if you missed the live episode. One quick thing about that, real quick, and I've also mentioned it in the description for that episode. I'm learning a new editing software, and so the audio is a little bit here and there with that one. Just trying to get everything finalized, and I had to do a lot of extra editing for that episode. But today we're getting ready to have a Dan Good podcast because we've got Dan from the Dan Good Show here in the arcade. Welcome on in, Dan. How are we doing?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm super glad to have you. As I preferenced everyone at the start of these are not professional. These are not something that we need to sit here and sweat about our answers about. This is just a couple bros talking about games.
I'm sweating a little bit, but you can't see it off camera, so
Oh,
it's fine.
that's good. That's good. We don't need the giant sweat pits everywhere. But I know we talked a little bit before about it. But you are going to be my first interview that I've had like the least interaction with, because I know we've talked on each other's channels before, and I know we
Sure.
have a little interaction with threads. But you're my first like newcomer into
Yeah.
the arcade, and I'm super
Yeah.
excited for that.
Yeah, I was so like the timing of you asking me was like so wonderful because it's like we have had some small but like very good interactions online, I feel like, and that's being able to be a guest on other people's projects is something that I like really wanted to do in 2025. And you asked me like maybe like the second or third week in January. I was like, this is fantastic. So like stars could not be more aligned on that. So
Oh,
I'm very grateful that you asked. I'm happy to be on. So
dude, I'm grateful to have you. Glad to have you here. So I'm gonna start you off with the first question I usually ask anyone. This question's gone
okay.
through the workshop a couple times. What is your first memory, like interaction you have with gaming?
I was thinking about this a little bit this morning while streaming, and I want to say that my earliest gaming experiences are not at home. They are maybe it's a regional chain, but like it's maybe a little bit more on a national scale. There's two grocery chains by me, the Giant Eagle and Acme, and both of them, at least when I was growing up, they had daycare centers there where like your parents could drop you off and there would be staff there, but those rooms were full of video games. So it gave me the opportunity to try a couple different consoles. In particular, I think it was Sega Genesis. I remember playing some like seriously hard Disney like platformer games, like from way back in the day. It was like supposed to be like Lion King and Aladdin and should have made me happy, but they were really hard. They were really hard. And like playing the original Smash Brothers on the Nintendo 64 and falling in love with that. Some of the early like Super Nintendo Mario games as well. So like that developed my like love for video games, and because my mom would always drop me off, then I eventually demanded games. So that was my first experiences is definitely at those daycares.
So that's really fun because most of the people I've talked to have been like, it's an at-home thing. It is in the home.
Yeah.
Except for Ian, who grew up in the era where like arcades were like just big. Like that
Okay.
that's where you had video games, were arcades. But I like the pull for the Sega Genesis. You don't hear that very often. And then those daycares, we had one for Kroger in my area
Okay.
growing up. And I remember playing the crap out of Pokemon Puzzle League. Out of
Okay.
all the
Nice.
games you could play, Pokemon Puzzle League was the one they
Yeah.
had there.
Yeah. Yeah, I never had a Sega console at home. My first one was we got a Nintendo Entertainment System from a garage sale after some time at the daycare centers. But yeah, the Giant Eagle one was the one that I remember that was called the Eagle's Nest. It was just full. It was loaded, man. It
That's
was
just good
loaded.
branding.
I got to try it all. Oh yeah, absolutely. I miss them.
So okay, so we have Nintendo 64 growing up in the Eagle's Nest.
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then the NES at home. What's some games that stick out you for the NES?
Man, so the game that sticks out to me the most on the NES is actually my least favorite game, which was Zelda 2. And
Okay.
it's legit called Zelda 2. So there's The Legend of Zelda and then Zelda 2,
Two.
and then I forget what we move on to beyond that. I don't think it goes straight to Ocarina of Time.
No, I
No, it
think
would be Majora's Mask for N64.
well, no, it's I think it's Link, A Legend of Zelda, and then I think it's Zelda 2, and then I
Mhm.
think it's A Link to the Past.
Oh, we go to the Game Boy.
I
Okay.
I can pull up the timeline.
Okay. Okay. 'Cause I remember playing, A Link to the Past and loving that as a kid, but the and I love the Zelda franchise, but my first experience with Zelda was Zelda 2, and that is not a good entry point to that franchise.
That is completely fair. Okay, so you have Legend of Zelda 1986, you have
Mhm.
Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, and then you
Okay,
had A Link to the Past 1991.
okay, on, like, Game Boy Pocket,
I think
probably.
so.
Okay,
And then
'cause I remember it being in black and white when I borrowed it from a cousin.
in 93 you had Link's Awakening,
Okay.
and you also had the Faces of Evil and the Wand of Gamelon.
Oh, I don't know
Ooh.
that one.
I don't know Faces of Evil, but I do know the Wand of Gamelon.
Oh, I don't know that either.
It's uh it's the Famicom one.
Oh, okay.
It's the one with the
I've never
really
heard of that.
it's got CDI screens and stuff. So it's like
Oh,
animated for
okay.
cutscenes
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's a really weird 2D side scroller. It's where you
Wait,
get
so okay, so that's what those, like, old cartoons that I've seen of Zelda. It's from that?
it's partially those because they took out some of the designs from those and they used those for the original like they did a Legend of Zelda cartoon at the same time they did
Okay,
the Super Mario Super Show, if you ever watched it.
okay. Super Mario Super Show. No.
Oh,
The only on-screen project that I can think of, like, prior to the new movie is the old, like, Super Smash Brothers, the one with, I can't think of the actors, but the live action Super
yeah.
Mario Brothers movie, which is a horrifying movie.
Definitely
I didn't know there was that either.
watch the Super Mario Super Show because
Okay,
that is a gift.
okay.
Because at the start and end of every episode, they do a live action bit,
Oh, no.
which is great.
Okay.
Uh, and then there's the animated like block 11 minutes,
Mhm.
and those are just a gift. But the show for Legend of Zelda was weird.
Okay.
But the Famicom games are where you get "Excuse me, princess." Oh, the Famicom games are a time.
Okay, okay.
uh,
That's cool. You're expanding my Zelda knowledge. I had no
yeah.
idea. I'd not heard of
Oh,
those. But yeah, so that's my earliest like at home memory. That was like one of the cartridges that the NES came with, and it was like seemed cool, and I did not get it. Like I was maybe 9 or 10 when we finally got a console at home, and that was a tough awakening there. And I think we had one that was called, I want to say it was like Double Dragon. It was which was great because I have a little brother. He's 3 years
yeah.
younger than me, and it was one that we could do co-op, which was great. And that was a lot more fun. That reminds me a lot of. They've kind of had a revival lately. There was a TMNT game that came out last
Yep.
year, and a Power Rangers game that came out as well, and it was kind of in that style. And I've always enjoyed those. I know
That,
there was like a Simpsons cabinet arcade back in
yeah.
the day
The
that
side
I
scroller
love
beat 'em
playing those
ups.
kind of. Yes, yes, I love playing those kinds of games.
Have you heard of the game which I you already mentioned that you didn't really have Sega growing up,
Yeah,
except for at the Eagle's Nest. But have
right.
you heard of Guardian Heroes?
Mm-mm.
So I grew up with a Sega Saturn.
Okay,
My brother had I have an older brother who's about 6 to 7 years older than me.
okay,
Um and I've talked about this game a little bit before on Joystick. But Guardians Heroes is a side scroller like fantasy beat 'em up, kind of
okay.
in the same vein as Gauntlet.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the really interesting thing about Guardian Heroes is it was kind of built like a choose your own adventure. So at
Okay.
the end of the level, you'd get like a small cutscene, and then it would give you a choice of what you wanted you and your party to do, and it would take you to whatever level was with that
Huh.
corresponding choice.
Okay.
And you could unlock one of the villains as a playable character because of
Really?
it, and then and it was just like it was such a good game, and they did an HD remake for it at the tail end of the 360's timeline.
Okay, nice.
Definitely
I
give it a
love
look.
that. That would be amazing as a kid
Oh
too,
yeah.
like, having that much, like, freedom in a video game because I don't associate player choice with games from, 20 plus years ago.
Oh yeah, especially console games. Console
Yeah,
games was definitely a very on the rails. Here's your story, enjoy it.
right.
And then if you're looking at
Or a
PC,
platformer with absolutely no
oh
story.
yeah,
You just recognize the IP, so you just go.
oh those were the days where you just had games and you're just like, this is what I got. I've played this
This is a
one
game.
game 50 times. I don't know what's happening, but by God, it's fun.
And now I hate replaying games. I cannot do that.
Really?
I think no, I think we just honestly, I think we have too much media and it's like it's true of anything. It's true for books, it's true for like movies and TV shows. Like so much of the magic of any of those things to me is not knowing what's going to happen next. And like I didn't feel that way as a kid, but now I I try to open up a book that I have like fond memories of as a kid and I get one chapter in and the whole thing comes back to me and it's like I'm not interested in this anymore because I know what's next.
That's really interesting. So I'm going to bring up the genre conversation on that then.
Yeah.
How do you feel about roguelites?
Roguelites I don't count in that
Okay.
because
No, that's
it's
fair.
a lot of them and your mileage varies, of course, it depends on the game that you're playing, but I find a lot of times the story doesn't actually open up until you have to replay it. And so I find joy in that in a different way sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes roguelikes can frustrate. Like we talked about Darkest Dungeon a
Yep.
little bit earlier today. And that can wear down on me pretty quick. But Hades is one that I could shout out as I've not beaten it. I've definitely not like beaten it. I know you can like get all the way up and out
Yeah.
of hell, but I've gotten to fighting Hades, and then once I died there, then all of a sudden like new things unlocked in the story, and that's very cool to me. That's definitely a different situation. But say like I'm streaming Dragon Age right now, my goal with most games, and I typically will play like action adventure or like RPG type games, my goal is always to 100% it on the first run to like do absolutely everything that I want to do in that one run. Cause as soon as credits roll, I am not interested in returning to it. Cause like the magic is gone. Like I'll
Yeah.
remember it very fondly, but I would never start a new playthrough on Veilguard. I would be off to the next thing.
I find that very interesting. I think as we go back to the NES and then forward from there, I want to see if we can find where in your gaming history you think that divulged into becoming what that is now. Because
Ooh.
I agree with what you said about there being too much media now. I've
Yeah.
got at least almost 400 games in my Steam library.
Yeah.
But I know for like me personally, I can go back to a game I haven't touched in 4 or 5 years.
Mhm.
Like I'm doing it right now with Skyrim on stream.
Okay.
I'm doing a full playthrough of Skyrim, full vanilla playthrough except for everything that came with the anniversary edition, because all
Okay.
those mods are made made by Bethesda, and
Oh, I didn't know there were mods in like an official release.
yeah, so it's the anniversary edition because it's after they started doing the Creation Club with Fallout,
Okay.
which is how they started allowing people to do mods for consoles and all that stuff. They made they have a subset of mods that are made by the Bethesda team or creators they've deemed like
Okay.
good. I don't know how they did
From
it.
like modder teams that
Yeah,
are known online or
yeah,
something along
and
those
they
lines.
paid them a chunk of change and they say, "Hey, we're gonna make it where people can pay for your mod to use it," and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, sure. um, and so the anniversary edition just gave you everything that the Skyrim Creation Club by Bethesda and those select thing of modders for free,
Okay.
and so you can still get achievements basically.
Good. Yeah, because I know that's always I don't know that I've ever played a game with mods for that reason.
Yeah.
not that I consider myself to be a like a trophy hunter on PlayStation or an achievement hunter on Xbox, but it's nice when that
Oh,
stuff pops up.
oh
And so
yeah,
it's I don't want I would never want to do something to
negate it.
sabotage that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only time that I've considered it is with Baldur's Gate 3, which I've not finished one playthrough of, but I am a loot goblin in every game that I play. And so, like, especially with a Bethesda game, like over encumbrance is my number one gripe with video games. So, if there's a mod that can take that out and I can still keep my achievements, I'm suddenly
Oh,
interested
it'd
in
be worth it.
modding.
It'd
But
be worth it.
until that happens, I can't do it.
So going back to the NES though,
Yeah.
and we go from where do we go from the NES?
So from the NES, we ran through the couple cartridges that came with it, like whatever my mom found at a garage sale, and we were so excited. I don't know, I can't remember what store we went to because it was 20 plus years ago now. Maybe it was an exchange or something like that. Got a couple new cartridges. We're super psyched to try them out. Whatever the first cartridge that we put in that game, immediately it permanently shorted the console out. It never worked again.
Oh wow.
Like, the TV, the old, like, box TV blipped shut, screen went black, and the console never worked again. It never worked again.
Oh my god, you
So,
bricked it.
it was devastating. It was devastating, and so but at that point, we were already I wanna say we were 2 generations behind already, like, the N64 was what was, like, the main console at that time, and I wanna say that we were getting up to the holiday release for the GameCube.
Okay.
So my brother and I were like, we were shoveling driveways in our neighborhood. We were like mowing the lawn, just doing like whatever we could to just like earn a little bit of money to get the GameCube when it came out. So we at some point, I know that we got a Game Boy. But in terms of consoles, we went from NES to GameCube. And
Okay.
so then my first game on the GameCube, I went back to Zelda and I did Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, which to this day is one of my favorite games of all time.
Same. Wind Waker holds a very special place in my heart as well. And it's so I remember for me growing up, it was we had both a Saturn and then we ended up getting a 64 at some point. And then I remember us having a PlayStation 2 at the same time about having a GameCube.
Okay.
But the GameCube was my console
Yeah.
with between me and my brother. And so like for me, the GameCube's where a lot of my gaming history sits.
Same.
So I like having that dynamic between us. So you got Wind Waker, which is an instant classic.
Mhm.
Luigi's Mansion.
Oh, of course. Of course. I would say, the original Animal Crossing as
Yep.
well. Have to call that out. I
Rossetti.
wanna say Fire Emblem. Ugh, Rossetti. Oh, so much anxiety from that, man, at an early age. I wanna say Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, or maybe that's the Wii one.
That's the Wii one because that one's for
Okay.
Ike. Um,
Yes. Okay.
let's see what one was on GameCube.
But I know I found Fire Emblem in the Game Boy series, and I've followed it throughout.
Oh no, the first one with Ike, Fire Path of Radiance is GameCube.
Ah, yes, I nailed it. Okay. I see Shrek 2 as well.
Oh.
That's my wife in the chat. She's a good lady. Shrek 2 is her favorite game on the game. And honestly, absolutely one of the best movie adaptations for a video game is Shrek 2. It's like surprisingly great.
Right.
And it has four-player co-op, like
And it's not one of the
very fun
it's not like
game.
one of the party game Shrek games. Because I know Shrek's had
No,
a crap ton of party games.
yeah, no, this is like a legit like action adventure game.
Okay.
And it follows like corridors and stuff, kind of more in that like Final Fantasy action way. But like, man, that game is fun, and you get different characters based on the levels that you're doing.
Okay.
So like, you of course have like Shrek, Donkey, Puss in Boots, Fiona, but you'll rotate through. Like you can get the Gingerbread Man. I'm pretty sure you can play as the three blind pigs. Like it rotates you through when it's relevant to the movie. Like genuinely, like I'm not joking. Like she called that out, and it's legit a fantastic GameCube game. Very fun.
I will have to look at it a little bit, but I also got a comment: the three blind pigs. You mean the
Yeah,
three blind mice?
Oh, yeah. Oh, oops. Yes. Yes. Yes, I do.
I like that you took literally probably the weakest in terms of like fantasy, like fairy tale lore, and you just shoved
Just
these
smash
two
them
weak,
together.
just smash them together.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not relevant. You just need Puss in Boots. You know
Yeah,
what I
you
mean?
just need Puss in Boots.
He's so cool.
That's all you need.
He's eternally cool.
Um, what's Sunshine on that list? Super Mario
Oh,
Sunshine.
yes. Yes, it was.
That was
Absolutely,
one
it
of
was,
my
and
big
people
ones.
don't like it. I love it.
I love it. It
It
is
gets
one of
so
my
much hate. I
favorites.
think it's such a great game.
It that and then I know it's on the opposite end of that coin. Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door.
One of the best RPGs of all
One
time.
of the best RPGs of all
All
time.
time.
The Paper
Like,
Mario
not
franchise
a
is what,
Mario game, like an RPG. It's one of
yeah.
the best ever.
And like for me, like the Paper Mario series as a whole is my favorite out of anything the Mario franchise has ever put out. Luigi's Mansion's close
Ooh.
second,
Okay.
but like for me, the Paper Mario series,
I think I could agree with that.
and it's, I don't know if it's just for like me personally. I know I've talked about it a lot by myself. I'm an RPG dude. I mean,
Yeah, same.
I do Dungeons and Dragons. I've been DMing for over 10 plus years. I've got two
Oh,
homebrew
nice.
worlds that I've extensively built out. I love my RPGs. Baldur's Gate was a gift. Skyrim, Oblivion, wonderful. But to me, there's something about the Paper Mario franchise that is just unique, that it took that hardcore RPG element, dumbed it down a little bit, and made
Mhm.
it available to the common player.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I assume I feel like we're roughly the same age. I'm approaching 32. I don't know if
Oh, I'm
we're
27.
okay.
We're
But
in the
no,
same
that's the same
circle.
generation
We're in the
still.
same.
We're millennials, yeah.
We're
Are you a
on.
millennial?
I so that's the fun. It's a fun little debate. I
You're
like
kind of
getting
an in
into.
between.
I'm in that in
Okay.
between because if you look at like the political definitions for like millennial and that generational
Mhm.
hoopla, my like if you look at my like economic policies and stuff like that, I'm very old fashioned, very conservative on that. But if you
Okay.
look at my social policies and everything like
Mhm.
that, I'm very new age, Gen X, that millennial mindset of
Sure.
everything. And so
Okay.
I you sit right there in that midline.
Yeah. But okay, so we have like I mean all of the but like all of the games that you're calling out are also and maybe that's because I came into them a little late
Yeah.
and maybe that's how we have like the same because you've basically mentioned every game that is also in like top games for me but I totally agree like that Paper Mario was I was just such a fascinating, just a delightful game to play as a kid, and so many cool I guess they would be biomes, but they didn't feel like biomes as a
Yeah.
kid. It was unbelievable, like, being able to go up to the clouds where there's, like, WWE happening and, like, this
Yeah.
cloud city, and then there's, like, a moon base, I'm pretty sure, where, like,
Yep.
Princess Peach is being kept, and a pirate ship area and like a haunted mansion. It was just so like it was like wonder in a game, similar to Wind Waker too, where it's like I could not believe on a console that old that you can just get in a ship and just go somewhere. And just that's like, and it's still unbelievable to me now. Just like what the technical limitations that that console had that you were able to do that is extraordinary.
Oh, and it that sense of adventure that you mentioned
Yeah.
with Wind Waker, like that to me, that was what the GameCube was. It was adventure after adventure that like just stuck with you. Like for me again, Sunshine, Luigi's Mansion, which also I don't know if you didn't know, like it had replayability. It had New Game Plus. That
Oh,
you,
did it?
it had New Game Plus for
Okay.
Luigi's Mansion, and you could do that over and over and over and over again, which is crazy.
Okay.
And then, but like Wind Waker, and then Pokemon Coliseum. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite Pokemon games.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Uh-huh.
like I love the,
Saving Pokemon from darkness and
yeah.
being able to raise them as your own.
Oh,
Oh my goodness.
and then like for like especially if we go on the tangent of Pokemon for a moment, I
Sure.
love the mainline Pokemon games. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
My favorite Pokemon games are side games. Pokemon Snap for the N64, Pokemon
Okay.
Coliseum for the GameCube,
I
uh
like Mystery Dungeon.
Mystery Dungeon,
The first Mystery Dungeon is really good.
and then Pokemon Ranger for the DS. Another
I
great.
don't think I know Ranger.
So Ranger was, they brought up this concept where they're not exactly trainers, but
Okay.
they're like park rangers, but
Okay.
they're also like the main military force other than like the Officer Jennies for Pokemon.
Okay. All
And
right.
instead of capturing them in Pokeballs, they have what they call the Stylus system, and they shoot out a
Because you're on the
Beyblade.
DS.
Yeah, because you're on the
Yeah.
DS, and you shoot out a Beyblade, and
Fantastic.
you make a bunch of rings around a wild Pokemon,
Yeah,
and
you do.
it becomes your friend for a short period of time until, like, say there was a log in the middle of the forest that you can't get by. You go, oh, there's a Scyther over here. Catch, befriend the Scyther with your stylus system,
So you can move on.
and then he cuts down the log and he moves on from his life. And
Okay.
then you had it where during the boss battles, which is still that capturing system, you could put a Pokemon in the top, and it gave your Beyblade, because it's a top, but
Yeah. Like an
it,
elemental ability to
given
it.
an elemental ability, so you still had that Pokemon dynamic of the rock paper scissors system.
Sure. I love that. Yeah, I've never heard of that one.
Oh, that's a
Okay.
great brand. It's
Love that one.
so its second one is how you got Manaphy in Diamond and Pearl, because you
Oh,
would
you
get,
had to have like save data from that?
you would have to progress in the story so far, and you would get the egg for Manaphy, and then the Manaphy egg you could trade over to your Pokemon. They're like,
Mm,
hey, we want to send this to Professor Rowan to over in the Sinnoh region to develop it
I love
and
that.
understand it more.
I love that.
And so then you, in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, you'd get the mystery gift and be like, oh, this is your friends from the I think it's the Alario region or something like that.
Okay.
And so that's how you got a
That's where
Manaphy egg.
Ranger is?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're like, oh, that's super cool.
I love that.
So, but
I
like
think what about the recent Legends game? How do you feel about Arceus then? I would
Arceus
consider that a side game.
Arceus Legends is the best Pokemon game we've gotten in years.
Wow, okay.
I
Okay.
will die on that hill.
Okay. I think I could agree with that. It's not it didn't stick with me enough to finish it, but it's by far the most innovative one that we've had in years, and also it actually runs well, which is something that I have a big problem with Sword and Shield, and whichever title was after that, I
Scarlet
could
and
only
Violet.
play it for a few. Yes, I could only play it for a few hours because I could not stand how it ran. I
So
just couldn't do it.
I used to be, and I know my chat and my community will probably give me crap for this later. I can hear the comments now. Um, I used to be very on the, oh, Scarlet and Violet's not bad. It runs really well for my Switch. Da 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 da.
But
But so I recently touched my Switch for the first time in multiple moons.
Mhm.
Uh, just
It's
a
been a
couple
minute for me too.
just a couple weeks ago, and that's because one of my amazing community members, Vinny, I was talking about not having the DLC for Scarlet and Violet because I also
Mhm.
just haven't beat it yet. I got like, I've done like the main three storylines for it, beat all the gyms, and I've gotten up to this one has two champion fights,
Okay.
and it's the standard champion, and then it's your rival fight.
Okay.
I haven't done the rival fight yet, and so I
I
haven't
mean,
touched. I
I
haven't,
have a couple Pokemon at 20 in Scarlet and Violet. That's like as far as I was like, I can't do it. I'm sorry. I
but
love Pokemon. I just couldn't look at it.
so he gave me a Nintendo gift card that he found. Legitimately, that's the words
Nice.
there. He found a Nintendo
Okay,
gift
Vinny.
card
Okay, Vinny. All right.
to get the DLC. I loaded that thing up, and I swear it took at least an hour and a half to load.
Oh no.
And I went,
Oh
I'm
no.
like, is it because my Switch has just been sitting around? Is it just because there's so much content in this game now that this is what's making it chug? But
Does
like,
it is it add on to the existing world or do you go somewhere separately for
uh,
the DLC?
you go somewhere separate. I do know
Okay.
that, but then
I didn't know if
also
you, like, booted it up differently from the main menu or,
nah.
like, is it an existing part of the world?
It's an existing part of the world that you go to and then travel to.
Okay.
But it's just like, and then like to open my map takes at least 10 minutes. And I'm just like, what happened to this? I'm like, again, I used to be one of the people that went, Scarlet and Violet's fine. I don't know what the hell anyone's talking about.
Yeah.
And now I'm sitting here with a potato in my hand. You gave me a freaking, like, pretty much a 4070 graphics card and then switched it up for a potato. But
Ooh,
Legends,
so okay, can I ask you
yeah,
then,
go for it.
do Switch 2, when do we think we're getting Switch 2 this year?
I don't
Because there's a
know.
conference April 2nd. That's when we have, like, the press event. See what it's all about. When do we think we're getting it?
I I'm gonna say either start of fall
Okay.
or Christmas season because
Ooh, okay.
Nintendo likes their Christmas releases. They
Mhm.
they they are big on it. I remember the fights of Black Friday for Wii. I remember driving to four
Oh,
different.
yeah.
I remember
Oh,
driving to
yeah.
four separate WalMarts within a week
Uh-huh.
for Wii. So it's just
I
like,
did not remember that being an issue with the GameCube, but the
nope.
Wii was the first time that I, like, knew what a console shortage was
Yeah,
because demand was just so high for that.
I think that was one of the first ones though. In retrospect, like especially,
Probably.
I'd say that and the PS3. I remember it being a problem with the PS3 as well.
Yeah, and I think PS3 was more of a feel like a supply concern where like with the Wii, the demand was just like super high. And then I remember the PS3 was like so expensive to manufacture. I don't think they made as many when that first launched. And so there was kind of some scarcity there. But I don't think Nintendo was ready for years for how much people wanted the Wii.
Well, and then so going to the Switch 2, I know their big plan for it is to be like, we're going to make so many that it hurts. Basically,
I hope
is
so.
what they've
I
said.
don't believe them,
I
but
don't
I
believe
hope
them.
so.
I
I
don't
mean,
believe
I'm glad that they're aware of scalping 'cause scalping is such a horrific issue with gaming today. But I don't think anything can stop the scalpers. We'll see.
no.
We'll see.
And
But I
it's,
guarantee you, when I get a Switch 2, I'm booting up Scarlet and Violet and seeing seeing how that runs.
I don't even know if I'll get
maybe
one.
maybe I could actually play
Well, like
it.
I don't even know if I'll get a Switch 2.
Oh, really?
Like I just, as I said, it was probably so to kind of go into like my streaming journey with you a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, I just got out of a really terrible relationship, and then I own a house now. Like that's my big caveat when I tell people I was like,
Okay.
I was in a relationship for 5 years, married for 3 months, and then shit hit the fan, and now I own a house. Like that
Okay.
that's that timeline there. And I remember because I didn't have like furniture yet, I didn't have things set up yet. I remember playing on my Switch the first couple of weeks like in my bedroom because
Mhm.
I would set the charger up be on my nightstand, and so I just play my Switch right before bed,
Sure.
put it back up.
Yep.
I remember that for like the first couple weeks of living in my house.
Just because that was the only furnished room in the house.
Yeah, and then once I got the office set up, once I got the living room set up, nothing. And so it was months before I touched it again. I think at some point I ended up getting I got Scarlet and Violet for a while.
Yeah.
And I remembered, "Oh yeah, I have this game." And then I was playing the new Pokemon Snap for the Switch
Yes.
because I was like, "Oh, this is a nice game to just like chill out
Yeah.
in bed with." Uh,
Sure. Yeah, Snap is not for me, but my
uh
wife was obsessed with that. I remember her friend would come over and the two of them would play even though it's a single player game, but they would preemptively like try to guess what like the ratings of their snaps were gonna be and like they would swap in between like levels and stuff like no, that wasn't good enough. Like just trying to they had so much fun with that.
but so like I just haven't touched my Switch, so it's like I don't know. I just
Yeah. Get it?
I grew up a Nintendo fanboy. I grew up loving my Pokemon and stuff like that. I've got still all my handhelds. I just
Oh, really?
yeah, I've still got my Game Boy Advance. I've got one of the original like brick blue DS's.
Nice.
I've
Okay.
got a Nintendo. I got the DSi, and then I've got my 3DS.
Okay. Nice. Hey, you got a
So,
whole spread.
oh
See,
yeah,
I'm a very early adopter of tech, but it's got it for me. It has to be like one thing in, one thing out. So I'm always trading in last generation's console to kind of like ease the cost of like getting into the next system. So
that
like I have a PS5 Pro, and so that's like me. Like I immediately then sell the PS5 to kind of like ease, kind of split the cost getting into like the next, and I'll do the same thing with the Switch 2. Like we have a switch that'll go by to just kind of help ease the financial burden on that, but it's always one in, one out for me.
that's how I was with like the PlayStation and the 360. So
Okay.
that's where I was on that. I do have to ask, is the PS5 Pro worth it?
No.
Okay.
Like
Just wanted to
I mean
discount double check.
yeah. Yeah, and I say that, like I have a 50-inch 120 hertz OLED TV. Like I have a very nice TV for it, and it does take advantage of those things. I would say if you're a tech enthusiast, you will notice improvements. Is
Okay.
it worth? But I mean, I know for a fact that you can get a new PS5, at least a digital, because the PS5 Pro is digital. You can get that for 400, 450 bucks, and this is 700. And it's, if you are not a tech enthusiast and if you don't have an OLED TV, that there's no reason to get. Like, it's, the loading times are not that much better. I don't notice a load improvement. Where it can be cool is games that were locked at 30 can become 60, or games that were 60, you can do a hybrid where you can get like 40 frames per second, but you can stream it in 4K or play it in 4K, as
Yeah.
opposed to having to make that 1080p 60 frame sacrifice. You have so many more options with that, or doing 40 frames 2K plus ray tracing. And like, as somebody that doesn't have a gaming PC, like I look to a console or like, those in between
Yeah.
models to try to get as close to that as I can, because I love gaming, I love tech. I've just never had the monster PC rig.
No, I completely understand that. Like with me, so when I bought my PS4, well, my PS, uh, hey, I was one of the people that got like the email from PlayStation that went, "Hey, you've spent enough money with us. We consider you a true fan. Here's
Nice.
a cue card for the
Uh-huh.
PS5.
Get in line.
Get in
We
line."
bless you with the opportunity to be in line, with the
Yeah.
opportunity to pay for one. Yeah.
Ironically, they sent me two.
Oh,
Oh
nice.
yeah, so one of my buddies in college, he's like, "I will literally pay you for that link," and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
$100 for the link. Let's go, bud.
Ooh,
Here we go.
okay. Nice.
Um,
Nice.
but it was I went and bought a new television for my PS5,
Just for the PS5. Yeah.
and I got gypped. I got screwed over so
Uh-oh.
hard with my
Did you
TV.
get like a McDonald's menu board when you booted it up?
No, I got. So I was home with my ex. Whenever like I got the PS5, and then like I think it was spring break hit for college that
Okay.
semester. And so I went home and I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy a new TV. It'll be the one I keep here at the apartment, which is fine. And then I'll just transfer the PlayStation back and forth from college and everything. But when I'm home, I want a good TV for it. And I want a
Absolutely.
good solid. It was supposed to be a 70-inch 4K, like good TV.
Sure.
Bought it on Walmart. They said they had one in, ready to go. Just had to come pick it up. Right.
Uh-huh.
Drive to my local Walmart. Um, they don't have the TV I bought, and the closest thing they could give me is a 60-inch Vizio that I learned it was one because Vizio has like those different TV grades, and they had like the gaming grade TV.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Learned that that doesn't even do 4K.
Ooh.
It's just like 1080p. Here's we got a high refresh rate for you.
Oh, okay.
and some
Which a PS5 can't do.
yeah, we got a high refresh rate for you, and oh, look at that! You got contrast colors for it,
Oh.
and that has been the thing that has absolutely beat me to death over the
Ugh.
TV
Wait, so
because
did you get the TV?
they basically said, "Hey, we'll give you this TV and half your refund," basically.
Okay.
And so I basically got
Kind of sweeten the pot.
I got the
Kind
TV
of.
for like practically $50 at that point.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
But I'm also just
Okay.
like, I want my 4K
But
TV.
it's not even close.
I
Yeah, it's
want,
not
I
even
want my
close to what you
4K
need.
TV, dude. so, so like one of my big goals, especially because I've moved my PlayStation in here, I want like a nice, good 40K extra monitor for my
Mhm.
capture card, so I can play my PlayStation how it's meant to be
Sure.
played.
Yep, that's right.
ah.
But would you do a monitor that size? Do you have room in your office to do like a full blown TV?
I
Because
would
like
put
I have
I would
two.
you would see Dan, you would see me on stream and I would stream like this playing. I swear to God I will mount it up on the wall and this is what my stream would be.
Beautiful. And then you don't even need like overhead lighting because the
No,
TV will just be like,
it'll just
I love
blast
it.
me in the face.
Yes, I love it. I wish that for you.
If
Because
money
I have
wasn't a
two
problem.
27-inch. Oh, I hear you. I hear you. I have two 27-inch 4K 60 monitors. So like not the biggest screen in the world, but it is the 4K 60 still. So it's like
Yeah.
you're not really losing anything. It's tough to let go of my OLED in my living room, but I did stream my initial streaming journey last year. I spent the first probably 6 months streaming from my living room. So I was
Okay.
using that TV, and I had an HDMI cord stretched from the TV to the coffee table for the capture card to then
Yeah.
plug into the MacBook. And then I would use my cell phone on a ring light pointing at me sitting on the couch.
Dude,
And
streaming from a
I did
MacBook?
that. Yeah, and
That's
it did not go
brave.
well. It
That's
was
brave.
720p. It was a MacBook Air. It was stressing. I didn't say it went well. But I did that from probably like January to July last year, and then I hit affiliate. And then my brother works in tech, and he loves building computers, and so he kind of put some miscellaneous parts together to get me something that could at least get me through a 1080p 60 frame stream. And it's a sense helped me with a little bit of upgrades because I do a lot of video editing for YouTube as well. And so we're slowly building up a computer, but I have like this space behind me permanently to stream from, which is nice because I was
Yeah.
always setting up and tearing down in my living room after every stream, and that sucked.
If it makes you feel any better, my PC gaming journey started on a Mac.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so that's a dumpster fire to begin with. Like
Yeah.
I
Uh-huh.
I could say a good third of my Steam library is their text adventures. They're from a production group called Choice of Games,
Okay.
and they free used the programming software and the code for people to build these text adventures with. And then they go, "Oh, this one is doing really well on our website for free. How do you want to give? Do you want us to pay for the rights for it for the licensing?" And we charge. I think of most one I've seen is like $9 for
Okay.
one of these
Just to
things,
port it to Mac.
just to port it onto the Steam library, and you'll make basically 3/4 the revenue off of it.
Okay.
And
Not a bad
so,
deal.
and I will tell you, like for a person who enjoyed reading growing up and who
Mhm.
does not have enough time for it anymore, and then also for just a really good, like some of these are really heartfelt like text adventures because like some of them have like
So
RPG
they're like
elements to.
quality written
Yeah,
works.
like these are
Okay.
surprisingly really well done.
Okay.
And like the one that sticks out in my mind is called Choice of Robots.
Okay.
And you're an inventor at like the turn of the century, like if we would have a turn of the century like now type of era, and you build a robot, and you can either make it like, I remember some of the choices are like, what do you want to build its frame out of? Like, do you want to build its frame out of aluminum because it's easy and cheap, or do you want to build it out of this weird steel alloy that the military's discovered? but
Okay.
because you chose that one, the military you now owe the military a favor.
Ooh,
Or
okay.
like what do you want to build, how like its appearance looks, and do you want to use this like nice polished plastic but it doesn't make it look friendly and approachable, or do you want to like hand carve it out of its face out of wood?
Hmm,
And so it's like you have all these choices that just give these statistics that then run through the rest of the game.
yeah.
And I remember the end of my story for that run, like my first playthrough for it. I'm crying at the end because it's like I made
Wow.
this robot and things are
Yeah.
happening and I'm just like, "Oh no."
Man.
But
That's impressive though. I
oh,
love that. I love that like when a game can because for me recently that was Neva. I started and ended Neva in one stream, and it literally I didn't know much about it. I knew that it was pretty, and that game had me sobbing on stream at the end, and I was very mad about that because I was not ready for that. I was like, it's a holiday. Like, I want to play more indie games this year. That's like another goal of mine for 2025. Like, I don't get to try enough video games because most of my games that I focus on are like games that you and I have already mentioned. They're like
yeah.
these big 100-hour fantasy RPGs, which I am obsessed with, but I don't get to play a lot of games in between while I'm doing that. So I'm trying to dedicate like one day each month this year to like start and finish an indie game. And it just looked so cute. It looked beautiful. You know, there's like wolf pups that are your companions for the games, but it's such an emotional beautiful adventure that like same thing. I'm and credits are rolling and I'm just crying on camera. I'm like, it's ridiculous.
All right. So I first got to ask, do you have a game picked out for this month?
I do, and I'm not picking one that's going to make me cry. However, I would love a recommendation for
I,
March. For February, I'm doing Thank Goodness You're Here, which is just like a slapstick British comedy game.
okay.
I need I cannot go consecutive heartbreakers, but I'm happy to take a
Uh,
recommendation for another month.
so I don't know if it'll be a heartbreaker for you. It was a heartbreaker for me because it had a lot of
Okay.
things that like just hit me where it hit me. And I know my chat knows exactly where I'm going right now. And if you listen to last episode of Joystick, I don't know if you listened to the whole thing. I brought it up then too. It is a
I don't
beautiful
think I remember you pulling this.
it's a beautiful indie game called Until Then.
Until then. Okay.
It is done by a full Filipino team. It takes place in the Philippines. Um you play as Mark Borgia, which 2 days ago, happy birthday, Mark Borgia, wonderful character.
Happy birthday, Mark. Okay, great.
Um, and it takes place in like the early 2000s. So, like, definitely with how we've talked, we're in that same circle of like growing up. I
Yeah.
know there's going to be things that you probably remember from your childhood that you're
Okay.
like, oh my god, this is that thing. Oh my god, I remember doing this. And it's a um it's kind of like a visual novel, but not because
Okay.
you walk around a little bit in it. Whenever you're in a scene, you walk back and forth side scrolly. And they break up the story in what they call mundane mini games. And I'm gonna say a sentence, and I'm going to gauge the reaction on your face. Sorry, audio
Okay.
viewers. And I want to see if you know exactly the feeling that I say whenever I say this sentence.
Okay.
Plug in a USB for me, Dan. That simple or is that a hard task?
I'd be okay. I'd be all right.
Yeah, but you're gonna flip it a couple times, aren't you? You
Of course, you have to.
okay,
It's
so
never right the first time.
no, so the first one in
That's why USB-C is great because you don't have to worry
you don't
about
have
it.
to
But
worry about it.
you're guaranteed to mess it up with a USB-A. Absolutely.
So that's like the first one you get introduced to for these mundane mini games. It's like
Fantastic.
you finish the school project, you put it on your USB, you're in class, and you've got to plug in it to the teacher's laptop, your USB,
And you can put it in wrong.
and you put it in wrong twice.
Okay. Awesome.
And I'm just like, why did this game evoke that emotion to me? But without spoiling it, there's two new game pluses,
Okay.
but it doesn't feel like a new game plus. because when the first one ends, it'll roll credits and then it'll automatically start you again.
Do you play as like a different character
You play the
or
same character,
okay?
and the thing that got me, I was like, "Well, I'm gonna go ahead and just walk to school." Like it was the second day I streamed it, and I was like, I'm walking, and and I was like, "Well, I'm gonna go ahead and just walk to school while I talk about my feelings about the game because I thought it was over."
Mhm.
And I will let you know, like this game it's beautifully written. The characters are wonderful. It's got and it's one of the things I love about indie games. It has a lot of heart put into it, and you can tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then whenever it restarted again, I was like, "Well, I'll just walk to school like you do in the very beginning."
Mhm.
And then I'm like, "Wait a minute, that graffiti's a different color now."
Ah,
And
okay.
then there was a guy that on your way to school tried to sell you cigarettes and stuff like that. And I
Mhm.
remember Mark's comment being like, "Dude, I'm still in high school. What the hell are you trying to do here?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, do you want a bottle of water?" And
Hmm.
I was like, "Wait a minute here." And so on your way to school, you get texted by one of your classmates that you're in a school project with. And the first time around, you're like, "Oh shit, I forgot to do this, yada yada yada." Give yourself a little tension.
Okay.
The second time around, one of your best friends from the first playthrough text you, and they're like, "Hey, Mark, did you finish our project?" And I'm like, "Wait a
Our
minute."
project.
And I'm like,
Our
"Wait a
project.
minute here." And from there, the game, the writing and the story and just the everything on this game just starts ramping up, and like
Hmm.
it
Okay.
opens wide.
Oh,
It
okay.
is it is a
And you run through it 2 additional times?
you run it through. There's three full playthroughs basically,
Okay.
and by the end of it, like it ties everything together. It wraps up beautifully. Um, I will say, like for me, like my big thing with it that hit me hard my first playthrough, that like why I was like, emotional game. Here we go. Mark lost his mother at some point. Um,
Prior
and
to the game.
yeah,
Okay.
and it's never disclosed if she's missing or not.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that's actually an assumption I'll let you make, so I'm not spoiling anything for you.
Sure. Okay.
Um, but there's a conversation that he's having at some point that it hit really close to home with me because I have lost my mother.
I have to.
My mother passed away about 7 years ago.
Mine too. 8 years ago. 8
Eight,
years in March.
yeah,
Yeah.
mine was 7 in January.
Okay.
So we're on this train together. And there's
Mm.
a moment whenever you're having a conversation with one of your friends, and it does one of these really nice things where it'll show the conversation that you're having, but it won't show you two having the conversation. It'll show you something else.
Okay.
And I like that type of storytelling. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
But there's this kid and another kid with that kid's father, and the father's like, "Oh, so your mom's coming here to pick you up, da 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 da. If you think you can wait here by yourself, then we're gonna go ahead and go." And he's like, "Yeah, I can do it, da 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 da." And then that kid's mom comes, and he's like, "Well, why didn't that parent wait for you?" And the kid, you can tell, like as the scene progresses, when he's standing there by himself, he's getting like scared because it's late at
Mhm.
night. And the conversation that that kid has with his mother punched me right in the feels. Like
Yeesh.
it hit me
Ooh.
hard because
Okay.
I think one of the main lines was like, even though I even though you're sitting here scared, I wish he would have waited for you and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But just so you know, when you're feeling alone, you're not alone. I'm always going to be with you in some sense in your heart. And I'm just like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
sit.
I can't play that immediately after Neva,
Yeah,
but this sounds wonderful. I will definitely put it on
it
the calendar for the year.
it
Can I do it on console or do you have it is it PC only?
I will discount double check real fast. I think they put it on PS5 actually.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm happy to. I really don't like the goal is like one indie game a month this year, something that I can start and finish in like a roughly like a 4 hour period. If I can do it
It i
earlier, fantastic. But
it is on PS5, and that's the only console it's
hey,
on.
okay, that's cool. Okay, great. I will add it to the docket. I need a comedy game in between
No, that's
that
fair.
and Neva. I need an emotional break, but that
Oh,
sounds fantastic.
and there's some comedic moments in it. Like there's one. I bet growing up you probably messed around with Omegle,
Megal. Oh, like the
anonymous chat
chat
site.
roulette
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
There's a moment in there where Mark gets on Omegle because he's home alone, and so it's the exact. If you've ever messed around with like chat roulette or Omegle, it's
Yeah.
exactly what you think it is.
Okay. Great.
And it's like that's
That's
funny, that's humorous, and it's like
yeah,
I relate to that for
absolutely.
somehow.
Yeah. Is like AIM in there? Is there like AIM instant messaging?
No, we're
Because I feel like we're kind of in that like
we're in a
time frame.
we're in a weird period because they have like almost like iPhones,
Oh, okay.
and they all communicate through like early age Facebook,
Okay.
like early Facebook.
Okay.
So, but it the game like it was my game of the year last year.
Wow.
It
Okay.
was personally my game of the year, and I
Okay.
fell in love with it, and it's solid game.
Okay.
But I'll
Well,
shut up.
good. I'm
I'm
glad to have
going to shut up about it because I know
yeah, 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 yeah.
my
This is
chat.
like I'm like pulling into the camera right now. Like
Yeah,
I'm like very engrossed in this. I will put it on the calendar for this year for sure.
my chat, my community has heard me just vomit about this game so many times. They're probably just going, "Shut up, Caleb. Stop talking about Until
But
Then. We get
it's
it."
new to me, so it's
Oh yeah,
important. I
yeah.
yeah.
Um, Going back to your joystick journey, since I know we hit that tangent real hard.
Yeah.
We got GameCube. We're going from GameCube. Do you have any like PC experience with gaming? I know we
I
had
did for
Mac,
a
but
ew, yeah. Well, that was never supposed to be for gaming. That
yeah.
was like I just 2024 I just like I just wanted to do it. Like I had wanted to stream for years and I had just talked myself out of it for years. Like it's weird, it'll be embarrassing, like whatever. Even though I consume so much content on Twitch and have like always wanted to, I just always talked myself out of it. So 2024, I was like, you just do it. Like who cares? And nobody cares, which is the best part. Like you can just have fun if it's fun for you. So the MacBook was never intended for gaming. That was like a personal computer that we had. I was like, well, I need something to plug the box into, and would not recommend. I had a brief stint. Uh, my stepdad liked to build computers, and he had put one together for me when I went to college, and so I did a little bit of PC gaming. And that thing was a radiator because I think it was the 700 series for NVIDIA graphics cards. Like it was old.
Okay.
But I had three of them strapped together, and I would literally sit in the office and sweat because the room would just get so hot, so hot. But I did play like some really amazing games on it, like The Witcher 3. I would call out as an awesome game that I got to do there. The Deus Ex series. I think it's Mankind Divided.
Yep.
Maybe that's the title. So like love that game.
Mankind
But that was
Divided
that.
and Human Revolution.
Yes, yeah. So I played both of those. And then I think the last game that I played on that before it kind of got outdated and I didn't care to upgrade it because I just always preferred a controller, was Overwatch. And so,
Okay.
but at that point, I would plug my Xbox controller into the PC and play Overwatch. And we got to a point, it was like, I'm just gonna play Xbox. Like
Yeah.
I'm doing the same thing. Like, and I have no interest or the know-how to upgrade the computer. So we are just now in this past year from streaming having like an actual PC in my house for the first time in almost a decade.
Oh
Because I think
wow.
2016 is Overwatch. So
That sounds right.
yeah,
That sounds correct.
somewhere in that ballpark.
I remember it being big for like my last because that's when I graduated was 2016.
Okay.
Graduated high school specifically, I will preference.
Okay.
Uh
I was gonna say, I was like, oh yeah, me too, but that was college.
that that's when I was going into college, and I remember Overwatch being They're a big thing for our esports team. They're like, "Oh, we're
Okay.
gonna play Overwatch for our esports," and it's like, we have an esports team. What?
Yeah, that would have been really early for an esports team. I feel like I didn't hear about that until I left college.
That makes sense. That we expanded our esports pretty big for where I went to college, and I remember it
Okay.
like we renovated one of the buildings to make it like an esports hub type of
Wow.
deal.
Okay.
Yeah, like it was a thing. Um.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, it was like because I was part of their Smash Brothers team
Mhm.
for Melee. And by team, I mean I came in and got my ass handed to me multiple times to let other players get better. Uh,
Listen, there's practice squads on professional teams.
oh
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
I'm just
Like if
there.
you if you're watching the NBA, there's a full time practice team. You
Roy's my
gotta have it.
boy. It's okay.
We like Ike over here.
There we go.
Hey,
My new main's Pac-Man. Out of all Pac-Man and Piranha
fascinating.
Plant are my
Okay,
mains
I
for the newer ones.
I have clung to Ike for a long time.
That's fair.
Long time.
He's got good range.
He has a counter.
Yeah, and that
He has a huge sword that looks awesome. Like half of it is looks for me. Like he just looks cool.
that hey, if that's what you pick your characters off of, I ain't flacking you on it.
You give me a fantasy dude with a two-handed sword, I'm probably in. Like the bar is really low.
um, just talking about games in a whole, then for you, I know we're RPGs,
Yeah,
and RPGs action adventure seems to be your shtick.
of course.
Is there genres that you don't touch?
Fighting games would be probably the first one that I call out. I have never felt not, and I've tried them, but there's not a single fighting game aside from Smash Brothers. But that's more like of an arcade style. I'm more referring to like a Tekken or like a Street Fighter, that kind of deal. Soul Calibur. And I have never wrapped my head around those games. And
Yeah.
I've tried many of them. I recently got like early access on 2XKO, which is the company Riot who makes League of
Oh,
Legends.
okay.
They're coming out with a fighter in that style. And like they make it sound like, oh, it's like very approachable for new players or like players that aren't familiar with the fighting genre. Like the way we do combos is like very approachable. It does not work for my brain. It just doesn't. And I'll give it an hour. I'll give it a fair shake, and it's like I don't find joy in this. Like I don't think I'm going to learn at a pace that like I this will bring me joy. Like I'd rather just play something else. That's probably the big one. I would say racing, but then I like in my head I thought that initially, and then I walked that back because I think there's really cool. Again, aside from like a Mario Kart, more arcadey, the Forza Horizon series that's on Xbox and is now going to be on PlayStation. They just said that
Ooh.
Horizon 5 is moving over to PlayStation soon.
Okay.
Uh, really, really cool games that are like you will go into races, but it's so much more it's a racing adventure. It's
Yeah.
not you are never on like a traditional racetrack. You're almost always doing something extravagant. Like there's you'll do like a monster truck rally or you'll race a running train as you're like going through these trails. It's very it's like real cars. There's
Yeah.
hundreds of them, like from performance to luxury cars to off-roading vehicles like the variety of cars is insane and you'll use those to do like all kinds of different challenges that like do not involve a racetrack and that stuff's super fun. So fighting is like the one where it's like this brings me no joy. I'm just not good at it.
I I find that interesting. I'm gonna kind of piggyback and segue. Is there a genre that you find as a guilty pleasure for you? Like one
Guilty
that you
pleasure.
like you don't touch very often that but you can come back to and it's like this is my genre where I find like this weird solace in.
So I'll call it a guilt. I'll meet you halfway
Yeah.
because I don't think I have one that like I don't play. I would say that my guilty pleasure is Fortnite. I play that every week.
Yeah.
But I call it a guilty pleasure more just because of like the perception of it. Like
Yeah.
me being in my 30s, if I tell someone that I play Fortnite all the time, like, okay.
What are you doing,
But
bud?
like, I adore that game. It is So much fun. That's so on Sundays I stream adventure games like I'm doing
Yep.
Dragon Age now, but then on Tuesday nights I always stream with my family and we play Fortnite together. Like that's what we do every single week. And we all have different anime character skins. Like I've got Goku. My wife just got Sukuna from Jujutsu Kaisen, one of the villains there.
Yeah.
I have My Hero Academia characters. Like I'm waiting for the Demon Hunter or the Demon Slayer collab, excuse me, to
Oh
come
yeah,
out.
they are doing that with this season, aren't they?
Uh-huh. And they just did you got to be Godzilla for like a week, and it's just like that game is so ridiculous. And I know it's a game for children, but it's also a game for me.
Well,
So
so I used to play Fortnite back whenever it was still early access, and it was the PVE, and it was like a
oh yeah,
we
Save the World.
yeah, and it was like a tower
Yeah.
defense.
Yeah.
So I got really butthurt whenever the battle royale really took off because they just kind of left the PVE.
I totally
They
abandoned
just
it.
they just dropped it. They dropped it like a
Uh-huh.
kid at a fire station, and
I don't even think they've put an update out for it
probably
since I
not.
started playing, which is I want maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Because Zero Build came out, and then a couple months later, they did the Dragon Ball Z collab,
Yeah,
and that's what caught my attention. I did not play Fortnite before that. I was like, I have no interest in build. I was aware of Save the World, but tower defense is also not really my thing.
yeah,
And then, but I just always heard about it because it was a massive game. It's just like it's like Call of Duty. Like
yeah.
you don't have to play Call of Duty, but you know what Call of Duty is. And I felt like Fortnite was kind of the same way. But man, when they put Goku in, I was like, and I messaged a friend. I was like, "Are we gonna try Fortnite?" And like, I've been playing it weekly for like 3 or 4 years since then.
So for me, Fortnite was one of the games because I whenever I was with my previous partner, I had three stepkids.
Okay.
Um, and that was the game I played with the boys, and
Yeah.
then the wife at the time we all played, and then we got a group of gaggle from college and high school of all of our
Yeah.
old friends. We would play that together, and then when I moved into the house here, I dropped off of it for a little while, and then I got back into it because of the wonderful Indie Bird and their community and stuff. And I haven't touched this season though. This season is the first season where I've just kind of sat down
Oh, I
and
love this
and
season.
I played a little bit of it, and I think it was probably right before Godzilla started showing up that I
Okay.
just went, I'm just I'm not
Just
on
need a break.
I'm not on the Fortnite train right now.
Yeah.
And like I've got a bunch a bunch of good skins. I've got probably almost every Marvel skin you can get still. I've got a lot of the DC skins. I'm trying to think of any anime skins I actually have, but I don't think I actually have that many. I
I
think
feel like I
I
have more anime than superheroes, but I mean, like they just did a Marvel
yeah.
season, I think 2 seasons ago, so I've got plenty for that. But
So
yeah, I can think of like All Might and Goku are like big ones that I alternate between
I would love
often.
to have All Might. I
All
am
Might is one of my favorite.
here.
All Might is one of my favorite anime characters, like all time.
I have it's a weird side tangent. It's one of the
Let's do
reasons
it.
I love All Might, and I'm a sub watcher. If
Yeah.
it's an anime I really enjoy, I will watch it sub.
Okay.
I will set aside time to watch it sub. My Hero is
Yeah.
one of those for sure.
Okay.
And my favorite thing is when you have subbed anime and they speak English. And
Oh.
All Might's one of those characters that
Oh, does he do it for a
he
smash?
does for a lot of his smashes. His
Yeah.
"I am here" is in English, and his
Ah. Okay.
plus ultra. And it's just like it is one of those really niche things that I go,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. Okay. That's cool. And I love this. I only watch dubs, so I'm very resilient. I can be patient. I'll wait for the dubs to come out and I'll avoid the spoilers and stuff. But
They've been doing a
the
lot better
guy
though with the transitions for dub lately. I
I
feel.
agree. I agree. Most shows are like a 2 week delay, which I'm totally okay with. Totally okay with. But the guy that voices All Might, his name is Christopher Sabat, and
Yep.
I can pull his voice out of any show that I watch. Like Full Metal Alchemist, I got you. One Piece, I got you. Dragon Ball, I got you. And he voices All Might, and his voice just with the character All Might just like does something for
Oh
me.
yeah,
So good. So
it's a
good.
perfect voice for him. He who do you voice in Full Metal?
Full Metal, he is Armstrong,
Okay,
the bald guy with
yeah,
the mustache. Yeah.
okay. I was,
and
I,
then he is Piccolo,
I
and
know he's
Vegeta.
Piccolo. He's
Piccolo
Piccolo and
and
Vegeta.
Vegeta,
Yeah,
for Dragon Ball. Zoro and One Piece. I don't know if I mentioned another show, and All Might.
yeah. So I
One
know.
of my favorite voice actors ever.
Oh yeah, he's up there on my list too for voice actors for sure. Um, the voice of Krillin. I don't know his name, but I can pick him out anywhere.
Oh, see, I don't think I could pick him in any other show.
Really? Uh,
No.
give me a moment because I'll find who he is.
Okay.
But his voice actor, I can pick out any day of the week.
Yeah.
Um, Sunny Stripe, uh, is who voices him for English dub.
Okay. I love that name, but I've never heard it.
Uh, I want to
What a
see.
great Hollywood name.
Oh yeah. I want to see what else he's done. He was the original voice for Toonami Tom before Steve Bloom took over.
Really?
Yep,
Okay.
that's
Well, I
that's
mean that's tough
interesting.
because Steve Bloom does that quite well.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Um. Of course, again, he's Krillin in all of Dragon
For
Ball.
everything.
Yeah. My hero. He's the English voice for Present Mike.
Oh, okay.
He's also the voice for Redestro.
Really?
And then
Okay. Sunny Strike. I was not familiar with your game. I apologize.
he is King Clover and the High Priest for Black Clover.
High
Uh,
Priest. I feel like man, it's been so long since I've watched Black
it's been a
Clover, and
minute since I've
I
watched
did
Black.
not finish it. Yeah.
I know he's Armin for Attack on Titan.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He in the Dragon Ball Super Brawly movie, he voiced Bardock.
His Goku's dad?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was the English dub for Bardock for the
Wow.
movie.
We are really super is where we stopped. We need to get back to we've caught up on some anime. So I had mentioned that to my wife this week because we've kind of been cleaning house on the backlog on anime. I'd like to get back into super.
I need to watch Daima because that's where we're at right now for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I've watched the first 3 episodes in sub, and my brain went, not right now. We just kind of dropped it and went,
there.
not right
I've
now.
been there.
My focus on
Well,
anime right now is Solo Leveling and then Blue Lock.
Yeah. Yep. Great shows.
Gr-
Solo
fan-
Leveling, we're 2 episodes behind now, but it's just like it's one that's like a genre now, and I don't know the genre name of it, but where it's like a video game, but like in real life, and that's the anime style. Solo Leveling for me is the one that doesn't make that feel corny.
Yeah.
It genuinely feels cool, and I like the progression of this character where he's kind of become like villainous. Like he still has good intent,
Yeah.
he grows into such a cocky and like
Asshole.
mean,
Just,
cold person. Where
yeah.
I mean, he kills somebody in cold blood in this season, and I'm like just to add him to the army, which I guess
Spoilers,
Sorry,
but
my bad. I didn't say a name.
you didn't say a name, but
But the progression or the regression of his character is like it's cool, but it's also kind of creepy. They're just doing a really good job
so
with
like
this season.
that genre, I can't find a name for it. But if you read a lot of webtoons on your phone,
My wife does. I don't, but
it's definitely a big trend for Korean manhwas right now. That video game aspect.
yeah.
There's one, if you would pick up webtoons and you want something that's in the same vein as Solo Leveling, The Lone
Mhm.
Necromancer.
Okay.
Korea gets hit with this weird force, and at a certain point everyone has to pick a character class, but you only have like a minute to do it, and
Oh,
he's
okay.
being chased by like goblins and stuff in the
Wow,
office
he's
building.
making the decision.
And he's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Slaps down one. He's like, oh, this one
Okay.
has 5 stars. Click. And
Okay.
he's the necromancer.
Okay.
And it's really funny because he's kind of like this really wholesome dude that's just around, but his powers are literally bringing things back to life.
Sure. Sure.
And the power progression for it has been hilarious. And then the just him dealing with certain problems because he's just like, I have multitudes of skeletons just at my service. Go. Just do the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But that would be definitely one I recommend.
Okay.
In the
We do
vein
have Vinny in your chat that mentioned isekai. Is that maybe the genre?
so
Is that right?
I don't know because isekai is specifically the idea of being teleported to another world.
Okay.
I don't know if we
Which
consider
is
this
not the case in solo leveling,
yeah, I don't know if we consider this like a subgenre because it's technically like the reverse of an isekai
where the
where
video game comes to him.
yeah.
Hmm.
So it's hard.
Yeah. But I think that's probably what makes solo leveling stand out.
Yeah, especially
'Cause
because it's the first manhwa that's been animated. So
what is is that a
it
Korean
it's it's
story?
it's Korean manga
Okay.
basically.
Okay. Okay.
So it's the first. Well, no, it wouldn't be the first manhwa. It would be the third, I believe. I
Okay.
can't remember if because we've got the Tower of God, which also
My wife loves that one.
that came from
'Cause that was I
webtoons,
think that was I was gonna say, that was the first webtoon that she read.
and
I
then
remember her calling that.
but I can't remember if that's specifically a Korean manhwa or not. Because a
Okay.
lot of anyone can publish to webtoons if you go through the correct channels for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's been wonderful, like for the freelance comic artist.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Um, and then um, God of High School, which is a
I know that
fantastic.
name.
It
Okay.
it got animated, and
Okay.
its manhwa is super dope.
Okay.
Loved reading it. It was my first one that I read all the way through, and to see it get animated. I don't know if we're ever gonna get a season two. I want a season two. I want to see the rest of this beautiful story animated, but
Yeah. How long has it been?
when was season one? Uh, season of high school. I wish you could hear the click clacks of my keyboard right now because I got a new keyboard and it is the clickiest, clackiest keyboard.
Do you like that?
I enjoy it thoroughly.
Okay.
It is
Okay.
it
As long
scratches
as you enjoy it.
it
Yeah.
scratches an itch in my brain.
Okay.
Um it went from July 6th to September 28th in 2020.
Hmm.
So I
So
don't believe we're
it's
probably
been
getting a season.
a concerning period of time. I feel like if it was within 3 years, I was like, never say never.
Yeah.
But also, I'm waiting on Fire Force season 3, and I feel like that came out in 2020, season 2. It's been a long time since Fire Force season 2, and I know for a fact season 3 is coming. But it's been a long time for Fire Force.
April 25th. Well, April 2025 is what they're saying.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
It'll be the first installment of it will be April 2025 and then another
Okay.
portion in January 2026.
Okay. Just call those 2 different seasons then. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's not that sometimes we get out of control, like with Attack on Titan, and it's like the final season, and then that has 2 seasons, and then it also has 2 movies. Like, you
Yeah.
don't have to just it can be 4, 5, 6, 7. That's cool. I don't
Yeah.
care. You know what I mean? It would be easier for me, honestly.
I mean, we're in what
'Cause
26 for Family Guy. I mean, just just
yeah.
just call it a
Yeah,
season.
it's fine. Like, I don't care. I think Demon Slayer is gonna do that too. I think this Infinity Castle arc is gonna be like 3 movies. Like,
Jeez.
you don't have to do that. It can just be seasons 4, 5, and 6, and
Yeah,
that's cool. You know what I mean? It's
that's
not that
fine.
serious.
I was gonna segue from that, and my brain, I felt it like slow down for a second. I didn't see the full blue screen, but it was enough there that I have no idea what I was going to be going to. Um, wow, my brain, it just gone. Um, back to genres and video game talk.
Sure.
Since we've gone on our anime spiel.
Yes.
No, no, I'll stay on anime for one moment.
Okay. Hit me.
What is your all-time favorite anime?
Mm. I feel like man, that's a tricky question. My gut says Dragon Ball Z. So I think I'll go Dragon Ball
Yeah,
Z. Because it's like I think kind of like we were talking about like with the GameCube, it's like formative to my childhood
yeah,
where it's like I didn't know what anime was when I was watching Dragon Ball Z. Like and you mentioned Toonami as
yep,
well and Tom and like I didn't know all of that stuff was anime. Like it was just Toonami, and it was just really cool because it was like Cartoon Network late at night. It
yep.
was like here's all these adult cartoons where it's like cool stuff is happening that like you don't see that on Saturday morning. And so I think I'll pull that. And like I said, Goku got me into Fortnite. Like I saw Goku on Fortnite, and I was like, all right, fine, I'll try it. You know, and it's like he just that world can like I'll always come back for it. And so it's I wouldn't call it the best anime, but I think I would probably lean as my
Your
favorite
favorite?
anime for for that reason. Yeah.
Mine, and it's gonna be a deep pool. Not very many people know it when I
Okay.
talk about it. Um, and my brain just lost it. I hate that. Wow, dude, you can tell I've worked close 3 nights in a
Yeah.
row.
Uh-huh.
Um, oh crap! Because it's an anime. They did a really big visual novel. Like it was a visual novel series
Okay.
first, and then they did an anime for it. Um,
Give me
uh,
what's it about? Is the
it's
name escaping you or is the whole thing
the
escaping
name
you?
is escaping me. It's a slice of
Okay.
life.
Give me the world. Okay.
It's a slice of life. Main character's name is Tomoya. Um,
When I think slice of life, I go right to fruit basket.
it's not Fruits Baskets.
Okay.
It is a shojo style, so it's a little bit
Spice and Wolf?
no. Is it Danganronpa? No, it's not Danganronpa. Nope, no,
Oh,
definitely not Danganronpa. That's
that's
not
not
Slice of
slice of
Life.
life. No.
Um,
But I would consider that a deep cut if
that
that's
is a
what you
deep
went with.
cut.
Yeah.
Um, wait, oop, oop, oop. I'm hitting things. Clanad. There it is.
Say it one more time.
Clanad. C L
Clanad. I don't know that
A
one.
N N A D.
Okay.
Um, so it's really cute. It's fun. Uh, there's like 3 different versions of this anime,
Okay.
but if you can find the original, which was done, the original series was done in 2007, and then they did another series after it called Clanad After Story.
Okay.
And if you watch through the first one, it makes sense why the second one's called After Story.
Okay.
Um, and then I know they've done a couple movies for it because, as I said, it's a visual novel.
Mhm.
But it's also a dating sim,
Okay.
and
Most visual novels are.
yeah, most visual novels are. So you have Tomoya who you're playing as, and he accidentally bumps into this girl, and he just starts talking to her, and then sooner or later he's just like fundamentally a part of her life now.
Okay.
And so then they start dating at a certain point. But you get to meet all the other like romance options from the dating sim.
Okay.
And there's one of them that
Scott Pilgrim style.
kind of yeah.
Okay.
And so it's really funny because like there's arcs where it's like, "Oh, will they, won't they?" And it's like, "No, because we got Nezuko over here." And it's like, "Oh, that's nice. This is who we need."
Yeah.
But then they do, because there's the side stories, and like one of them is like a younger girl, like she's at the young age spectrum of their high school, and
Okay.
she's obsessed with starfishes. But
With fishes?
starfishes, like
Oh, starfishes.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And I remember the plot at the end of in the anime. They're not sure if she's real or not, or just a figment of their imaginations, and that's like the plot for in the game as well. Is like you don't know if she's just a figment of everyone's imagination or not, which is really weird
Okay.
and just
That's
interesting.
yeah. It's
But
like almost like a horror element
yeah.
in what would otherwise be like a nice story.
Oh, and she's just super cutesy and like just this fun little story, and then you're just like,
Huh.
was she real or not? It's like, what do you mean if she was real or not? But they did a movie where they kind of cut out like that arc out of the anime, and then they just streamlined everything for the
Oh,
movies.
okay.
Beautifully done. I remember it bringing me to tears because the ending hurts. And then After Story also just really it is full just feels train, but
Okay.
classic anime for me.
Okay. Clan ad?
Clan ad. I will
Clan
type
ad.
it in the chat for you
Thank you.
so you can have that in your Discord.
Thank you. Got it.
Uh,
Perfect.
but taking that question, applying it to video games,
Sure.
all time favorite video game.
And favorite video game. I could probably give you a couple.
Okay.
I would say Dragon Age Origins comes up often in that conversation with me. That is one you had mentioned loving reading as a kid, and I do as well. And I almost always refer to Dragon Age Origins as the game that switched me to reading my video games. And like still to this day, I read very few books now, but I gravitate towards like the fantasy RPGs that you do as well because the lore can just be so incredible. And I will soak all of that information up. Like I am deep in those journals and those codex entries, and I'm like living in these worlds. And I think Dragon Age Origins, its world building and its story could be a fantasy novel, and you wouldn't know that it
Yeah.
was like adapted from a video game. So I'll reference that one very often. I would put The Last of Us 2 up there. I think
Really, two, not the first one?
2. I would do 2.
Yeah.
I has it been long enough to I'll be
No,
vague. I'll be
no.
vague.
Yeah, I'll put this here, and we're gonna talk about it free. We're gonna talk about spoilers for
Okay.
Last of Us Two.
Okay.
We'll find a place that you can skip to later and whatnot. I'll put it in description. Cool.
Here, I'll put it in your chat real quick.
Yeah. It looks like hour 1:31. Cool. Um.
I so many people don't give that game a chance because of the way it opens,
Yep.
losing the main character. I think it is one of the boldest creative choices that has ever been in a story driven game. And I think introducing Abby, she is so compelling, and also getting to grow up with Ellie is so compelling that I don't miss Joel by the end of that game. And I think that's such a testament to how powerful like the Dottie Dog team is, that they can do that, where I genuinely, maybe 2/3 of the way through, because at the halfway point you play the same story but from Abby's perspective, and you start to get through Abby's story and you kind of feel like Ellie's the bad guy. And that's such a powerful moment in that game for me. And what I think, like Neil Druckmann, the game director for Naughty Dog, does such a good job with those two games specifically, where you you have to make a choice that you personally, the gamer, might not make, but these characters have a tragedy that you have to play through. And that's for me, that's very true of Joel in the hospital as well. In the first game,
Yeah.
I would not make that choice, but you have to make that choice because it's not about you, it's about Joel.
Joel.
And I think they do such a good job of committing to that, where it's like, so you love Joel because The Last of Us is your favorite game of all time. Like, not you specifically,
Yeah. Yeah.
Caleb,
Yeah.
but it's a revered game. So it's like, what do you mean Joel dies in the beginning of this game? And it's like, it's not about you. It is about like Joel's actions have to have consequences. And Joel's actions are batshit insane
Oh
at the end of
yeah.
that game. Batshit insane. Like, you can argue about whether like the vaccine was like really a plausible thing or not, but like that's the sliver of hope that like all of remaining humanity has in that world. And he says, no thank you, I can't lose another daughter. And like, and you can wrestle with that choice too, but like that choice has to have consequences, and it has really intense, horrifying consequences. But that game is so powerful to me, so I'd probably put those two. I'd give you
So,
those two.
so with me with Last of Us Two, I will humbly admit I have not finished it yet. So I will say that.
Much longer, it's like twice as long.
Yeah. I got to the point. I think it's the third like level transition for Abby when you do switch to her point of view.
Okay.
And so it's like that second time you get to play as her, and you realize that you're going to be playing as Abby for a hot minute now.
Is
Um,
that where you go to like a more like a coastal environment?
you're in the coast. You're in the more coastal environment, and you start out at the stadium, and you're like, here's your mission briefing of what you're going to be going doing and stuff like that.
Ooh. Okay, so I'm talking about something much later in the game.
Okay, okay,
There's kind of like a third act. You're actually in the second act,
okay. So
which is exciting.
yeah, and but I've watched playthroughs of the rest of it because it's one of
Mhm.
those games where I played enough of it that I enjoyed it, but it was one of those games that I went, I can't finish this right now. I'm setting you off to the side.
It's heavy.
It
It's
is.
heavy.
My biggest thing as because I love stories, I love story writing and the mechanics of that and everything. I agree that Joel's death needed to happen. I'm on that side with you. I definitely know we are few and far between on this side with each
Sure.
other. My thing is I don't think we need to do it as quick.
That's fair.
I think we
It's
needed
totally fair.
give us we should have given us at least one like good level segment as Joel and Ellie. Send them out on a quick like supply run or something for the place that they're in. Build it up a little bit, and then you come back from that mission, and then we go into where we do a small time jump, and we jump right into where Ellie and Joel are separated and everything.
Mm.
I think
I think the pacing is a totally valid argument. I would challenge you and would love to hear from you sometime this year if you finish it, because I think there's very deliberate choices in the final moments of the game
yeah.
as to why it's done so early. And it's you like tear jerkers.
Oh yeah.
It's a tear jerker for
Eh,
sure.
eh,
They go back to the moments that you want um semi frequently towards the end of the game.
okay. But I feel like if we would have got that like, hey, here's Joel. Remember how
Yeah.
much fun you had playing as Joel?
The that as a pacing concern and a shock value for the protagonist of the franchise, that's a totally valid point. It could absolutely even be done as the halfway point for the game, and you can because you basically the first half of the game you play as Helly, the
Yeah.
second half you play as Abby, and then there's an epilogue. That second half I think could be shortened a lot, and you could have the introductory moments of that game happen in the middle point, and then you switch to Abby, and you can kind of brush through because they're playing the same timeline.
Yeah.
I think you could brush through some of Abby's story a little bit if you wanted to from a pacing standpoint. So it's a valid argument.
And then
But
like,
I would challenge you to
oh
finish
yeah,
the game, and I would love to hear your perspective once you roll credits.
I would also like in my own just like me spitting ideas at this point.
Yeah.
Because you play through Abby's timeline of leading up to killing Joel and
Yes.
everything. Do that at the same time. Like you get like little breaks where you just switch to Abby, but keep it vague as hell on who you're going after.
Mm,
That would be really good
I
as
do like
well.
that. I do like that.
Keep it as vague as you can, and like
I do like that.
have it like that last mission before you come up to kill Joel. Have it where you do the Abby flashback scene of the hospital.
Yes. I
Do,
love this.
do that.
And by doing that, you have an affection for Abby before that moment happens.
You have an
Because
affection.
I think that's what people really struggle with is it's a character that you really don't spend time with. And
Yeah,
like for me, to be very honest, I forgot Abby existed. Like Abby was not a character that was on my radar in the first game. But I grew to like love Abby's character. But to your point, you're not given a chance to.
yeah.
They just immediately make you hate her, and it's a long time before you get to play as her to kind of earn some of that goodwill. Not good, maybe goodwill's not the right term because I mean she killed Joel. She did what she did.
The vengeance.
Yes, but you get the opportunity to see her side, but you get it so late. So I think that's a valid. I think those pacing points are totally valid.
But other than that, I enjoy like a lot of the, as you said, a lot of the complaints about The Last of Us 2. I was just like, I don't see it. My brain,
Yeah,
I see it in the fact of like, yeah, I get where people are coming from, but it was that hill that I was with Pokemon. Scarlet and Violet ain't
yeah,
running like shit for me. Why is this a
yeah,
problem?
yeah.
So,
And I think part of it is that the story leaked like a week before the game came out. And I
oh
actually think that's where
yeah,
I think that's where a lot of the animosity lies, is that people found out before you could even play the game that your favorite character dies at the beginning of the game. And I think that set it up for failure. I think a lot of people were unwilling, once they found out that information, were unwilling to look at the game objectively, unwilling to give the developers a shot to tell their
yeah,
story because
yeah.
they found out something that they didn't like before the game came out.
And that for me is like a really interesting thing because I know that's been happening a lot in gaming lately. Honestly, like you're getting stuff that's getting spoiled before it comes out, or
Yeah.
um. So I know you do the kind of like your monthly review of games that are coming out for the month.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, which I actually just watched February's right before I got on the call with you.
Oh, nice.
Um, and I'm going to talk about one of the games that came out recently, and that's
Okay.
Civ 7, which isn't even out fully yet. It comes out in a couple days.
No. Yes, I
But
think you could like pay for early access
early
for it.
access. Well, like some of the bigger content creators, like the Yogscast, I know they've got early access to it right now,
Sure.
and they made a really interesting comment that I want to pick your brain with.
Oh, okay.
And it's the idea of first of all, early access games or early
Mhm.
dev versions of it, and they make a comment about the UI. You can tell with certain things that their UI for Civ 7 are definitely going to be in that day one patch or that
Oh,
release patch.
okay.
Like you can definitely tell that certain things aren't as up to snuff as they should be.
Okay.
Do you think it's fair to judge games on early access like that?
Um, in that specific instance, I say yes. Um, I know a lot of times. So the majority of my time spent on Twitch, like as a viewer, is watching like kind of like video game critics. So like there's a particular podcast company that I love that's called Kind of Funny, and they do a daily video game news show. They kind of cover things that are happening in the industry. They also do video game reviews. They'll do it for like TV and movie and stuff too. And so they're reviewing things weeks in advance before it comes out. And it's common for any outlet. It's not like specific to
Yeah.
them. That's just somebody that I like listening to. But like an IGN or a
Yeah.
GameSpot or something like that, these big, and a lot of times they'll put out really scathing reviews. I can think most recently would be Stalker 2 that came out in December.
Okay.
And that development team has been through hell. It's a studio from Ukraine, and they had to flee because they were developing in an active war zone.
Okay.
And
Yeah, it's the
and
VR game, right?
you might be thinking of Metro.
Okay.
Stalker 2 is a console game. I know that it's on like Xbox Game Pass, but it just came out in December.
All right.
Um, there is a Metro series that's kind of regionally in that same space that did just put out a VR title.
Okay.
But it was technically not good while they were reviewing it, and so reviews were pretty negative for the game before it actually released. They had a massive day one patch coming out, but if you're playing something in early access, like it's been given to you this way, and so it's you have to. I think it's unfair to review or comment on something for what's promised in the future, because you don't know what that's going to look like. So
Yeah.
if a game is given in early access, or if review codes are given 2 to 3 weeks in advance, you can only talk about, unless, and I mean I don't get review codes. I'm nobody in that scale. We'll get there
Yeah.
someday, but I'm not there. Um, I think it's unfair to like consumers or your audience or whatever to say like, this is my experience, but like they promised it'll be better later. Like I
No,
think they need to see it
no, and
personally.
that opinion is very fair. I definitely hear you on that one. I will say for you on the review codes thing, check out a website called Lurk It. Uh,
Lurk it.
it's in your chat now. At least
Thank
how
you.
to spell
Got
it.
it.
Um, Bird showed it to me,
Okay.
and you have to have I think at least
Ooh,
250
let me
followers.
put in your chat. I think we're done with Last of Us
Yeah,
spoilers. Let me just put that in.
yeah. Um, I think it's like 250 followers in order to like sign up for the website.
I'm not
You're
there.
not there
I'm
yet.
close.
Okay.
No,
I
I'm close to 200 on Twitch, and I'm very close to 250 on YouTube.
okay. Uh, I don't know what their for YouTube is, but because I know
I know
you have
Keymailer has been recommended to me,
yeah.
and Keymailer does require 200 on the YouTube end, so I do
Okay.
need to look into that going forward.
But you can sign up for keys for games, and some of them are early access, some of them aren't. Like I just did one for diplomacy is not an option, which is
Which
an
I saw you just streamed that, didn't you?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I got that key for free, and they just came out of early access actually.
Okay.
Um, and so they was like, hey, you want to do this game and show off specifically like the Twitch integration because it has it.
Oh, cool.
So if I would have got raided at any time during that stream, they would have sent an extra a wave of enemies at me. That
Oh,
that
whoa.
would have been the size of the raid.
That's so
So if
cool.
I would have got raided by a person raiding in with 6 people, I would have had a wave of 6 enemies come and attack my
I love
village.
that.
If I
I
get
love
raided by
that.
a group of 42, I have 42 enemies come and attack
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Um, if you
But
sub,
that's fun though.
oh yeah, it's
I mean
super
that's
fun.
great.
It's got the poll system, so every once in a while a poll will hit up on chat, and you did #1 or #2, and the
Mhm.
community voted on whichever one they wanted to happen to me. And some of them was like,
Does
"Oh,
the game trigger that on its own?
yep, game triggers it
I
on its
love
own."
that. I love that.
And then if you sub to me, depending on say it's a first time subber, I get a military unit that is named that username,
Oh, that's great.
and then their power level is based off of how many months they've subbed to me in a row.
Okay.
So
I love that.
if I get
And the
someone
game is doing it all on its own. You're not having to activate
you
anything
you
from
you
like a Twitch admin side.
you just go into your settings, you go activate Twitch integration,
You
and
just connect your Twitch account.
you connect your Twitch account.
I love that.
And it was that was basically like, hey, do a stream for it. And like some of the people that put up for it, they'll do where you have to have so many average of it, average viewers or whatnot.
Mhm.
Uh, I put in for anything and anything that says, hey, if I can request a
Yeah.
key, hey,
I mean, you
please.
play all kinds of stuff. Like
Oh
I feel
yeah,
like every time I see you streaming, it's something different. So
it's usually something different. And
yeah.
if I had my way with it, it's usually 2 to 3 different things in one stream as well. Um, and
Me
then
over here, I've been playing Veilguard for 4 months straight,
yeah,
desperate for it to be over. Next week it's over.
you're
Next week it's over.
you're looking for a drop of any other type of content.
I'm begging. It's getting to a point where like my wife is very supportive, but she doesn't watch a ton of the streams. So that's totally fine. But she's like, do you want to still be streaming Dragon Age? I'm like, I don't like that you're asking me that. It will be over soon.
You asking me that says that there's a problem here.
I've been streaming it for too long. Next week is it. We hit the point of no return today, and then we get to move on to another game after next week, which I'm thrilled about.
What if I may ask, and
Yeah,
if you may give my wonderful viewers a peek, what game are we going
sure.
to?
We're gonna do Indiana Jones next.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that one. It's like I still get to do like an adventure game, but I want to be really mindful of how long I'm streaming one particular game because like again, I've only been streaming for about a year.
Yeah.
And so I don't like that a third of that has been playing Dragon Age. I love the game. I love the game, but I only stream twice a week. And so like one is multiplayer with my family and one's a single player game on Sunday mornings. And so like I don't love that a third of that is one game. So I want to be a little bit more mindful going forward. Like maybe like a 30-ish hour game, that'll be the Sunday streams. And so that's kind of the vibe I get from Indiana Jones.
So
So
you're saying we're not gonna get a Witcher 3 stream from
no,
you?
no. Like maybe like I would be open to like maybe on like release day I stream like the first couple hours, but I do like the idea of starting a first playthrough that I'm streaming and I roll credits with you on stream. I like that feeling. But it just can't be another 100-hour game. I don't want to do that again.
I totally understand that. And like, so one of my big goals for this year is to complete more games on stream, which is
Yeah.
why I started Skyrim up again.
And
And,
nice to
and,
roll
and
credits.
it's great. And it was like, that was one of the big things. Like, I did Fallout 4. Fallout 4, I
Okay.
remember being one of the first big games I completed on stream myself. Um, I think I've got a list in my About Me, possibly. No, I don't have it there. I thought I did. I thought I had a list of all the games I beat on stream.
Oh, I love that.
Um, but so like, but with Fallout 4, and I'm a big Fallout fan, like major Fallout fan. So Fallout
Yeah.
4 was one of those games where I just went, I want to play a Bethesda game. I want to do all I can do with it. I want to do all the DLC before that final end quest, and then I want to close this chapter.
Yeah.
And so doing that was a lot of fun. Um, I was doing all of the Kingdom Heart franchise,
Okay.
and then my community said, "Hey, you have to do this on proud mode or critical mode." And I went,
Is that like super hard mode?
"That's the hardest difficulty in
Okay.
all of the Kingdom Hearts games." And I went, "You guys are assholes." Cool, thank you. And in Kingdom Hearts 1, if you have not played it, there you fight Maleficent towards the end of the first one.
One
Uh,
is the only one I have played.
okay.
I did one and then I did a chunk of three and it wasn't for me.
No, that's fair. That's completely fair. It
One
Kingdom
I loved.
Kingdom Hearts for me is not for casual players. As much as they want to
Oh,
progress
I
that with
agree.
it being for Disney, it's not for casual players.
It's like a trick.
Yeah,
Like pulling the it's like, oh, like all your characters, all your favorite characters from Disney are here in like this Final Fantasy-esque adventure, and it's dense.
it's
That
it
lore is dense.
that lore is a cluster.
And I
Uh,
tried to study before going into Kingdom Hearts 3. Like I tried to study.
you you
Tons you can't do it. You
you
can't do it.
you might as well study for a college course. You could run a college course on Kingdom Hearts. Um, but it was so there's the Maleficent boss fight towards the end, and her first phase is her as her human form.
Mhm.
It took me 3 streams, and that was
On
after
the max difficulty.
on the max difficulty, and that was after like in between 2 streams. I went and I grinded for hours one day just to get myself to a point, and then I immediately went into her second boss fight because there's a save point in between them. Luckily,
Okay. Yeah, that's
uh,
nice.
and instantly just slapped down, and I'm like, it has honestly taken the wind out of my sails to do that, to like complete
Oh,
that
yeah.
game right
Oh, I'm
now,
sure.
and I'm just like,
Oh, so you're actively trying to finish it
oh yeah,
on
like
max difficulty.
I
Okay.
haven't done it on stream in probably about a month and a half now.
Just because it sucked all the
I,
joy out
I
for
it,
you?
it took it out of me, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, and that was even after I had to beat Ursula off stream. Ursula's boss fight in Kingdom Hearts 1 is so hard for no good reason, and it's because and the main actually no, there is a good reason. It's in a water level. It's in a freaking water level that is the movement's garbage and just everything that they do for it because you're underwater that entire fight. You can't combo correctly. You can't roll. You
Because
can't.
you're also swimming.
You're swimming, and it's just like
Yeah.
stop. Just stop. So I may get back to Kingdom Hearts. I may not. But like my goal, as I
Okay.
was saying, my goal for this year is doing more games
Yeah.
start to finish on stream.
It's so fun to do it with your community.
Oh yeah. And so I think one of my next big ones is I want to do because I haven't done a Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough all the way through
Okay.
yet
I
on
haven't either.
stream.
I'm like 70 hours into Act 3,
Oh, you're gonna be
or like
there.
I have 70 hours in and I just started Act 3, and I'm
Oh,
like,
you're gonna be in
this
Act
looks
3 for a
bigger
hot
than
minute.
Act 1 and 2,
Yep.
which is I didn't finish it.
I've done one full playthrough, and that's when it first came out. But that's why I was still living at my brother's house, and me and
Mm,
him played it for like almost a week straight after work, because at
nice.
that time we worked at the same place.
Oh,
So we'd get home from work and we're like, "Hey, we're gonna do Baldur's Gate 3." Yep. All right, let's crack this out, and we did everything we possibly could.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm waiting for the next big update because there's a build I want to do. Um,
There's a bunch of new classes coming out
they're
with
doing
like
a bunch of
patch
they're
9, patch 8.
patch 8. They're
Okay,
doing a bunch of really good subclasses, and they literally picked all of my favorite subclasses for every of the
okay.
classes, and I was like, "Why you do this to me, Larian? Larian, I love you. You've been a bright star in
Yeah,
in the AAA area now, but why you do this to me?"
yeah. Such an incredible experience. Like again, I haven't finished my first playthrough, but it's just like it's the scale that it is a living world is just like really
the
hard to rival.
the fact that it is a D&D campaign, the fact that
Is it an actual like textbook
well,
campaign?
it's not a textbook campaign, but you could make it one. Like
Okay.
literally beat for beat, you could put that into a D&D module, and it would run beautifully. And the fact that it feels like a D&D campaign,
Yeah.
and the fact that they've put so many things in for um just weird scenario. Like there's a person that supposedly if you kill like both the goblin camp and the druid circle, there's an NPC that supposedly shows up to kind of be like, "Hey, this is where you need to go."
Oh, okay.
You can kill him 4 times over, and every time a new NPC shows up, and
Really?
he's completely different, voice acted, looks different, and he'll show up and be like, "Hey, this is the area you need to go to next."
Wow.
And by the fourth one, the next one just shows up, and he's like, "Stop, just stop." And it's like it's the DM just looking at you, being like, "Stop being a bunch of murder hobos and
That's
go to the next freaking
awesome.
area."
I love that.
And then I watched a YouTube video, and it was with slight modding, of course, but it was the idea of beating Baldur's Gate 3 as the Pokemon Ditto. So
Okay.
so the whole gimmick was you had one ability, and you could transform other than your class abilities. So he chose
Mhm.
fighter because that's the most one of the most versatile classes.
Okay.
And his major ability was during combat, he can change into any other creature that's in combat, but it had to be an
Okay.
enemy creature.
Yeah.
There's a scene that plays that's in vanilla code that if you show up at the end of the Nautilith as a mind flare,
Mhm.
as the intellect devourer, the mind flare will look at you and go find a thrall, we need help. And it's like
Oh.
the amount of just thinking ahead Larian would have to
Yeah.
do for just that one scenario.
Yeah.
It's like,
And it makes you feel like it's not code. Like
yeah,
it's like real. Like it's like that character is thinking because you are doing something. Like it has like an actual thought process. Like it's extraordinary.
if if people it let me rephrase that. If game companies put the heart and just thought into their games as much as Larian did for Baldur's Gate 3, just a ounce of it.
And the game industry would be in a totally different place. But
Eh,
there's CEOs that got to make a couple milli, and which
Well,
means the game's got to come out this quarter, and it just it hurts everything.
and I want to talk with that with you because you as we've mentioned, you do that like monthly game review of games coming out,
Yeah,
and you do kind of like a game review type of style of content. What's your opinion on the gaming industry right now? I know we're not some big
it's
wigs, and
sure.
we're not super big people.
We're not industry insiders.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
what is your opinion on the gaming industry right now?
I think it's devastating. I think it's very as somebody that's been playing games for 20 plus years, like it's heartbreaking. It's even now, like I'm finishing Dragon Age Veilguard, and Veilguard only reached half of its sales expectations that it was supposed to in this time frame. And that means we don't know the actual number of layoffs, but BioWare's been gutted. BioWare has less than 100 developers on it now. There is no Dragon Age team anymore. They've moved people on to Mass Effect. We don't know when Mass Effect is going to come out now, but BioWare is a shell of itself because EA has sales expectations that it did not meet, and that means that people are just gone. And the job losses over the last couple of years in the industry, it's tens of thousands. It's horrific, like how bad some of these things are, and in particular with live service. And like I say that as somebody that like loves playing Fortnite. I also love playing Destiny. I haven't played Destiny in a while, but I was deep on Destiny for a minute, and they've Bungie, who is like the staple for that, has had 1,000 job losses in like the last 2 years. So it's just companies just bought up so many developers, and instead of letting them do what they know they can do, like what Larian like believed had a vision for Baldur's Gate 3 and delivered on it and received commercial and critical praise. And you know that they're going to able to take as much time as they want for whatever the next thing it is because they have that funding and that backing from the gaming community to be able to do that. And no company that's publicly traded has any patience for that. And it's to the detriment of people's careers, it's to the detriment of people's enjoyment of games. Like I'm finishing Dragon Age next week knowing that there's not going to be another Dragon Age game. Like period. The BioWare team is too small now. They're only going to be doing Mass Effect, and EA's looking at the sales for this one like Dragon Age doesn't sell. And that's like I told you, asked me what my favorite game
Yeah.
was. One of them is Origins. And you're just not going to get another one because 1.5 million in 3 months isn't going to cut it. So it's devastating.
And I feel like I know your answer to this, and I know my answer to. I've talked before about for a while it felt like we was coming back into a golden age of gaming. And
Yeah.
that definitely felt with Baldur's Gate. Um we had some great indie titles coming in there. There's also been the Spider-Man games with Sony and Naughty Dog and well Insomniac and or even like recently Astrobot. Astrobot
Yeah.
was a big
Yeah.
surprise and it
It's what
felt
I
like
would call my game of the year last year.
yeah,
I loved Astrobot.
I haven't got to play it yet, really want to.
It's just delightful. It's
Uh
just joyous. When you need a break from your tear jerking indie games, switch over to Astrobot.
heard.
It'll make you feel good.
Um I felt like we was coming back into a golden era of gaming. Do you think we are? Or do you feel we are in this spot where we're getting a good game now and then, and the rest is not to the equivalent of shovelware,
Yeah.
but it's something just to meet ends.
So I think um like again as somebody that is like doing research on like what video games are coming out every month, I think we are in a golden age for gaming, but the part that freaks me out is that it doesn't feel like it's enough. Like I think the cadence and the quality of games that we're getting right now are extraordinary. Like my backlog is horrific. There's two big ones from last year that were in like game of the year conversations, which is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Um, Two huge games that did very well, but like I still am not gonna get to them, and you not being able to get to some of those titles is like I almost like take it a little bit personally when teams fall off and it's like a game that I didn't get to yet. Like it feels bad where it's these games are coming out that are of critical acclaim and can still do kind of well sales wise. And it's like Square Enix is never happy with how a Final Fantasy game sells. And so it's like, do they stop making Final Fantasy at some point? Because like 16 is really good. They don't like how 16 sold. They don't like how 7 Rebirth sold. And it's like, does that then turn into layoffs? Like, do you not get this trilogy that's like lauded as one of the greatest Final Fantasy series of all time? So like, what does GTA 6 need to hit before Take Two starts having layoffs? And you know what I mean? And like GTA 6 will be fine. I'm not saying like GTA 6 will make its billions and
Yeah.
whatever, but there's such a pressure to reach that financial threshold that we're getting so many good games that it's not going to happen. And there are so many teams that get closed or get gutted. It's like you see those stories, it's constantly. So I think we are in a golden age, but it freaks me out because it doesn't feel like it's enough for the publishers, the people that own those studios.
And I definitely agree with some of the points you made there. My thing with it is like, especially for us being on Twitch and us being
Yeah,
content creators, we understand the sense of community probably better than a lot of people do.
I agree.
And I think game companies at a certain at an older time understood that sense of community as well. I think because you used to have the console wars really hard and heavy, Xbox, PlayStation, throwing fists at each other.
Sure.
And I believe like I think the golden era of gaming that we're in right now is vastly different than what we considered a golden era for gaming in the old days. Especially for like GameCube. Like we've talked the GameCube as high as we
Yeah.
can. You had game after game after game after game that is just amazing. Wonderfully done, beautifully crafted, great story, and it was wonderful. And then you had PlayStation at the same time still pumping out game after game after game that was Astrobot being an example right now for that time period is a lot of people consider Astrobot the a remembrance to everywhere Sony has been, but also it being a graveyard. And I love that
Well,
analogy.
Sony
Oh,
in particular.
yeah, Sony in
Sony in
particular.
particular. Yeah.
And it's interesting because like now for my idea of like that golden era of gaming, I don't think we're getting as many good games as we used to.
The dev cycles have to be so long now
Yeah.
that it kind of it can create that gap. And God forbid the project gets canceled, like with Sony. I mean, we're missing a lot of titles from Sony right now because they had taken IP that are loved, it heralded, and has spent the last 3 or 4 years trying to make a live service title out of them, realizing it's not going to work, and then it gets canceled. It's like you just lost 3 to 4 years of work with nothing to show for it. When that's kind of like the cadence that gamers are expecting to see their franchise.
Yeah.
And
Like
get ready to wait another 5 to 6 years for God of War. You
yeah,
know what I
I
mean?
was just
Because
about to bring them up and it's like I loved
Get ready get ready for 2030 for the next God of War game because they spent the last 4 years trying to make it a live service and realized it doesn't work.
yeah, and it and I hate that. I hate to see that in gaming right now.
Yeah.
Because as much as I give the love to my indie games here, and like I've got so many good ones recently. Again, diplomacy is not an option. Uh,
Yeah.
Darkest Dungeon 2, fantastic. One that I've been playing the absolute heck out of on stream. Heroes of Hammerwatch 2. Uh,
Yes, I remember you talked about that one. Yep.
Super fun. Still recommend it. If you got $17 to burn, throw it at it, please. Um, But it's just like, as much as I love my indie games, there's still that special space for like those big AAA titles. And like the
Yeah.
last one I feel like I really played through that I was like, yes, this is gaming. And I'm not counting Baldur's Gate 3 because Larian still is not I don't consider Larian a AAA studio. I I
Oh, interesting. You would call them independent
I,
still.
I would still call them independent because they don't
Okay.
have that big backing. They
Yeah, they
they
don't have a publisher.
they are from their bootstraps indie company because they started with
Yeah.
Divinity
Yeah.
way back in the day, and they've just been building off of that success over and over again.
Yeah.
And but like the last big one I remember playing is Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 was a phenomenal game, great
Oh, yeah.
story, all around just good gameplay, and it was from Insomniac.
Mhm.
But then you hear Red Dead
And
2,
it didn't hit
and
Insomniac also didn't meet Insomniac's expectations. They had layoffs after Spider-Man 2.
it's like
It was nominated for Game of the Year, and that development team had layoffs because it cost too much to make.
and it's like what's Wolverine gonna be?
Eh,
Tell me what's Wolverine gonna be now?
yeah.
and or Red Dead Redemption 2. The backlash you had at that development team, and specifically like at Rockstar specifically, what was it? Over 300-hour work weeks type of deal going on, and it
Mhm.
was mostly to make a horse dick shrivel when it's cold. I mean, it's a good
You're
game.
not wrong. You're not
It's a
wrong.
great game, but it's like,
Yeah.
where's the line where we have the cost versus the
Right.
expectation? Where's the line of, do we want to make a good game or do we want to make money? And I feel there's
Totally out of equilibrium.
totally out of equilibrium, and I feel like there's a quote, and I love that I'm pulling this out of pop culture for Invincible season 3 right now. It,
Oh,
it,
okay. I
if
haven't
it,
seen it yet,
if you,
but
if you're not caught up, there's a line that Cecil says in the season, and it's, you can either be the good guy, or like, you're either the good guy or you're the guy who gets things done. You can't be both.
Mhm.
And I think that is a perfect dynamic for the gaming industry right now. I
Yeah.
think that is a good dynamic for everything going on in the world right now.
Mhm.
And it's just like, just big size, and just
Yeah. Yeah.
because like other big games I've been looking out for on my radar that I have, like as you said that you haven't picked up for
Mhm.
you, for me, Dragon Ball Z Sparking Zero, wanted to pick that up so bad,
Yeah.
and I just haven't, and I probably won't, and I hate that because I'm a big Budokai fan, and
Okay.
that's the revival of Budokai,
Sure.
and then Sonic Generations X Shadow Generations. That thing's half a freaking remake. That's all that is. Plus with some extra levels slapped on. It's like,
People seem to love it though.
oh, and it's like, I want it. I want to play it. Shadow's my
Yeah.
favorite character. Sonic 3 was
Mhm.
fantastic. Where do we go from here? That's the question. And I think
I
Larian voiced it very well at the VGAs.
Oh yeah, I don't remember his speech like verbatim, but I watched it live and like his moment was powerful.
And
'Cause it's Ben, right, who
yes, Sven.
runs the team? Yeah.
I think people need to take what he said to heart.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But they won't.
No, not
'Cause it's not
Microsoft.
no, it's like it's not the developers' faults. It's the companies that own them,
Yeah.
you know? And it's high you mentioned Microsoft. They want what Hi-Fi Rush was. Like Hi-Fi Rush was a smaller scale, so it was cheaper to make for one. It was a unique concept. It was an award-winning concept that was critically acclaimed. That I think had like 1 or 2 million players. Wasn't enough, and they totally closed. They just shut down the studio. They didn't do layoffs. Like that studio's gone, and I think they've revived themselves, and I think they're going to become an independent studio now, which is awesome. But it's like you're just I mean, video games can be art. Like you are just like slashing art because it's not hitting your Q1 financial metrics. And it's just like as a lifelong gamer, it's just like such an insane position to be in.
Oh, and
And it's
like,
like I feel pressure. It's like why do I feel pressure? Like I'm the consumer, you know what I
yeah.
mean?
Well, and it feel like, as you said, if you don't get to a game, and now that team's gone,
Yeah.
it's like,
Is that my
is
fault?
that
Why
my
does that
fault?
feel like it's
Yeah.
my fault, you know?
And then it makes you think about, like, because I know Microsoft bought Bethesda.
Mhm.
Bethesda's a it's a travesty when they put out games. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big Bethesda fan, but
Yeah.
those are some rough games when they come out.
Yeah.
What is Elder Scrolls 6 going to be when it comes out?
Well, and the longer it takes to make, the more pressure it has, right? 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's been what 5, 6 years since they just gave us a title card, Elder Scrolls 6. We've seen nothing for it since. There's been no media event for it. There's nothing for that game. And it's like the longer these games take, the more Microsoft or any company, if it's EA slash and BioWare, it's like the more expensive a game gets, the more pressure it has, and then it has unrealistic sales targets. And the people that created it are the ones that get punished. Like no
And
CEO is taking a pay cut because Dragon Age. You know what I mean? Like the
yeah,
EA CEO is still going to make $30 million this year, but the Bioware team's gutted.
I feel we hit like a very somber note on this interview,
Yeah, sorry, sorry everybody.
which I'm not complaining about. Like because
Sorry.
that
I
it
love gaming. You know
well,
what I mean?
oh yeah,
Like
and
I
this
know
is
you do too.
and this is like when I said I was excited to talk with you, Dan. This is one of the reasons I was excited to talk with you
Good.
because I
Good.
know you have the knowledge and the information. I know that you've done the research about some of these things,
Yeah.
and you're not just talking out your ass.
Yeah.
So it's like I that was something I don't think I had fully with a lot of the other interviews that I've had so far, and that it's a change of pace
Yeah.
because
It's like genuinely it's my hobby. Like when I was saying like in terms of like the Twitch content that I consume, it's a daily industry news show.
yeah.
Like that's like what I am so I just love games so much. I'm just ingrained in that way. Like I'm always looking at reviews. I'm always looking at what's happening with studios and like Jason Schreier is somebody that I will call out that does investigative journalism into studios. Like when you see like scandals at like Riot or Blizzard or something like that, like there's whistleblowers that come to him that like you find out like all the nitty gritty details that are going on inside the games industry that those execs don't want you to know about. Like I love that kind of stuff.
And so like one of the big ones that so bringing myself into that realm for a moment. The
Yeah.
last time I did any of that was No Man's Sky.
Oh, okay.
And that's because so as you probably gathered, usually when there's a big debate about a game, I'm on the side with less people.
Yeah.
And that was No Man's Sky. It was the last midnight release that I went to.
Oh, like you went to a
Yeah,
GameStop
I
for?
went to a GameStop midnight release to
Nice.
pick up my copy and my
Nice.
brother's copy.
I think Titanfall on Xbox was the last time I did that.
Oh
It was
wow.
like when the Xbox One first came
Yeah.
out, and that was like a launch title with it. That was the last one for me.
But everyone complaining about that, being like, "This game's such a big letdown." Da da da
False
da.
advertising. Yeah.
And but if you looked at what happened with it, Sony pressured them so hard to get that game out, and then on top of that, they had a flood in their game studio.
Oh, really?
They lost so much work and most of their
Oh,
computers and
no.
stuff like that. And it is probably one of the biggest underdog stories in gaming that I've seen recently now, and that's the development team for No Man's Sky. Because they're getting ready to put out their big 2.0 patch.
Yeah, they just put out a massive update too,
Yeah.
didn't they?
Yeah, and it's supposedly based like a game changer, and I hate that I don't have a copy of No Man's Sky anymore and I'd have to buy it again. But it's
Yeah, I
like
never played it
but
because
it's like
I only saw the bad press for it.
and I want to see where this game's gone. Because I had a hell of a time flying from planet to procedurally
Yeah.
generated planet, getting to name animals because I'm the one who discovered it, getting to name a planet because I discovered it, and going from there. But everyone was like, "Oh, it's not as big as they said it was.
Hmm.
Oh, they don't
Not as
have
advertised.
they don't have this, that, and the other." And it's like they do, but not to the scale. But it
Yeah.
was still fun.
Well, and I think just as much like if you're saying like I was not in I came to PlayStation late. I didn't get into PlayStation until like the PS4 came out. So I just wasn't as
Yeah,
in the know there. So I totally missed No Man's Sky, but I don't know. I love that. I what I do know about that team is that they've had so much good press over like what they've been able to build that game into, which is really nice to see.
yeah. And then on the opposite side of that coin, of the game is not what it's was being talked up to be.
Yeah.
It is one game that it is the sole reason why I do not why I try not to pre-order games as much as I used to.
Oh, okay.
Vampire.
I didn't play it, but I know it. You're a vampire doctor?
Yeah, you're a
Yeah.
vampire doctor. Um when this game was in its development cycle and they was talking it up, they had it where It was almost supposed to be like full wide scale open world like GTA.
Oh wow.
Not the case.
Sure.
Terribly not the case.
Few games can be. Yeah.
And then one of the interesting things was like it it had the closest the closest idea I could give you to the NPC system that they was talking about would be a comparison to Shadow of Mordor's a nemesis system,
Yeah.
where you would have characters that remembered you and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But it was the idea that, say, I drank from shopkeep number 4 one night as a vampire,
Hmm.
and because of that, he wakes up the next day, he feels sick, he's going to close his store, go to the hospital, talk to some person, get treated. The rumor mill starts that something happened to him, and that is supposed to spiral where he's connected to now like 6 different NPCs.
Hmm. Okay.
And it was supposed to be this immersive like storytelling system of where you had to be careful on who you fed on, because if not, this entire like province of town has the idea that you're probably a vampire and are going to come and
They
hunt you
start
down.
they start making the connections.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it was a system that I was like, this sounds amazing. This
Yeah.
sounds like it's going to be like revolutionary for gaming type of deal. Because that's what the Nemesis system was. The Nemesis
Hmm.
system was revolutionary. Now it's you can't do it. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's
It's copyrighted.
copyrighted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers.
Uh-huh, and they're doing super good right now too. Good gaming decisions over there.
And movie decisions and animated decisions. All the good decisions of Warner Bros.
So much so much good stuff.
Uh, but but so like what it ends up being is like, oh, you're in this level, you're in this area of the map, which each of the map areas are like they're biomes. I've learned this
Yeah.
word in the gaming industry now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, oh, and I learned it from your video today, by the way.
Oh.
So I was like, ooh, I like how it's not open
Uh-huh.
world, they're biomes.
It's
They're
biomes.
encasements.
Yep.
Um and it's like, so you got these separate like little biomes, and there's like 10 NPCs in this biome that are actually like conscious NPCs that have all of them have some part of a quest line connected to them.
Okay.
That's what it was. And I'm like, that's a letdown. The
Yeah.
gameplay, the combat, garbage.
Okay.
It's a stealth game for most of it, and the stealth mechanics are garbage. So it's like, what did we do here?
What did we deliver? Yeah.
Do you have a game in that aspect that was like that for you? A game that was just no,
Hmm.
I wouldn't even say overhyped, just absolutely wasn't anything that you thought it was going to be.
That's a great question.
'Cause Vampire, every time someone brings up,
Yeah.
well, why don't you pre-order a game? Like, I'm gonna show you
That's
why.
why. That's why. Ooh. I think it's Starfield for me.
Yeah, okay.
I just
I want to end this
I
conversation now. Yeah.
man, and I haven't finished Starfield. I have like 50 hours in it. I
Oh,
gave it like the college try.
let's try it 50 hours.
Listen,
It's a
I love
Bethesda
Bethesda.
game. I get it.
I love yeah, I love Bethesda too. I know it needs time, and I know the Bethesda jank is a real thing. And I was so obsessed with like the Xbox showcases with that game. I was like, this is what I need. Like I need them to try something new. I love Fallout. I love Elder Scrolls, but I was like so enamored with like Skyrim in space. You know, I was so excited for
Yeah.
that. And I just, man, it's just like it feels like a 10-year-old game. It came out 2 years ago to me. I absolutely loathe the space travel. It makes no sense to me. Um, I mentioned earlier, I am tired of encumbrance. Like,
Yeah.
at least my spaceship should have like limitless inventory capabilities, but it doesn't. And it just my nostalgia met my reality in a way that like I probably won't go back to Starfield, unfortunately. There's bits in there that I really really like, and like I said, like I think I finished the Vanguard faction stuff. I finished the Rangers stuff. I found the Mantis and like did that storyline, and that was
Okay.
fun. So it's like, I mean, I put real time
Yeah,
in the
you
game.
put some effort into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't love it. It's
I
not for me.
have you watched videos on the end of that game?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Before I get into that part of the conversation, I come to the funny realization. Another one of those games that came out that went, man, this runs like dog shit,
Yeah.
and I went, I'm not having that problem. Um, Same thing with my Switch and Pokemon situation kind of
Uh-huh.
happened. I still went to start streaming it, and I don't know if it was the fact that I was streaming it or they've just came out with so many updates and the settings are just wonky and I haven't dialed those in correctly, or the fact that I'm running a 1660 Super and I need to upgrade my graphics card. But it's like it ran like dog shit whenever I started streaming it. I'm like, I don't remember this. I was one of
Well, it
those
was
people
limited
that
30 frames per console too,
oh, and I was
like
like,
when it first launched.
and I was running it. I was like, man, this is good. I get a I get a couple lags on that loading screen of the ship taking off. Other
Mhm.
than that, I'm like, this game's running great. I don't know what you guys are talking about. And when I went to stream it, boy, buddy, I did 2 streams that I went, I can't do this. I physically put up my hands and said, I can't do this anymore. It hurts to play.
Yeah.
Do you mind spoilers for Starfield?
No,
Okay. Um,
and I probably know the ending details, so, like,
so
you could hit me with them.
do you know the movie Interstellar?
Yeah.
Take the whole concept of Interstellar, especially after they do the twist,
Mhm.
and that's basically the twist for the end of
Okay.
Starfield. The idea that you basically go through, and at a certain point, depending on if you was like really close with Sarah, I want to say is
Yeah.
her Sarah,
Mhm.
or the one guy that like hires you to become part of it, um the African American fellow. I can't remember his name, but he's like,
That
well,
hires you to be a part of it.
he comes to the mining place after you've already touched the shard.
Oh, yes, okay. Yes.
So depending on which one of them you have like the higher infinity with,
Mhm.
they die, like full
Oh,
on
okay.
just die. Which sucks because I
Yeah.
also romanced and married Sarah.
Ah, see, I went with Andresia.
Not fair. Good choice. Um,
Thank you.
and but then so the hunters that are at like the sites for the
Mhm.
shard stuff, they're versions of yourself and the other members of um what is the group that you're a part of? That's what uh
I thought immediately of the Vanguard and, like, the Freestar Rangers or whatever.
yeah,
There's
but
the Crimson Fleet, which are the bad ones.
which are great. They're a good gaggle of folk.
Yeah, sure. Man, what is, like, your team called?
Freestar. No. No, Freestar's
No,
one
that's the Cowboys.
Constellation. There it is.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Constellation. That's the
Not a
group you're
ringing indictment of this game.
yeah. That doesn't help any of this what we're
Yeah.
saying. But with Constellation, they're they are the other members of the Constellation
Okay.
from
Like
different
clones of them.
multiverses.
Ah, okay. See, that's the part that I do know. It's like you're
Yeah.
supposed to beat the game and then replay it because like different things happen when you boot it up.
And so the really cool part is that every time you beat the game and it starts that cycle over again, the only main difference is your members of collective
Oh,
of the
of the
Constellation.
constellation.
And
Okay.
like and it's like really minute things of one of them being like there's one time that you show up and it's a bunch of different versions of you,
Hmm.
or one of them that I was really glad to get on one of my first cycles. Constellation is a bunch of plants. It's a bunch of potted plants being taken care of by the tech lady that like
Okay.
does all the tech. She you walk in and you're like she's like, what are you doing in my greenhouse? And you're like, what do you mean a greenhouse? This is supposed to be Constellation. She's like, it was at one point, and then funding took a crap, and now I take care of these plants that I've named
Wow.
after like these members of Constellation. And you're just like, what?
So does the game just end?
No, you basically, because you have the knowledge, you have all your stats from before,
Okay.
and they give you a special ship, and every time you go through the cycle, you get a better version of the armor and the better version of the melee weapon. And I
Okay.
think the ship upgrades because the ship is not one of the customizable ships.
Okay.
Um,
This is like an end game
yeah,
thing that you're given. Okay.
they basically give you a better version of that at each cycle, but because you know the history of what you need to do, you just go off and do it.
Okay.
And I think there's one of them that like when you restart, they're all kids, and so
Okay.
it's the Constellation kids, and they're just a bunch of kids running
Wow.
around. And so you're like, well, crap, this run I've got a bunch of super intelligent kids. One of them's running a freaking company. The other one's this free-star
So,
cowboy running
so they're
around.
still doing all of the stuff that they would do as adults. They're just
Yeah,
doing it as kids
they're doing it as kids, but you can't have them as companions because kids
because they're
can't die in a
children.
because kids can't die in a Bethesda game, and it's like, well, there goes my
You
companion.
just have to do that run solo.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's like that was one of the best parts about that game
Mm,
for me, and that would be the
okay.
only reason I'd tell you to go play through it at least once or twice,
Yeah.
just because after you do it like the third time, you got it down pat of what you need to do.
Yeah.
You got it down pat, and you're just like, let's just run through it and see how many times I can restart this cycle real quick.
Yeah. Just to see what weird thing happens next.
Um, I will say a game I'm looking forward to though, in the same vein, Outer Worlds. Outer Worlds 2.
Outer Worlds 2.
Yeah.
I liked Outer Worlds 1. I didn't beat it, but I liked what I played.
My favorite thing about Outer Worlds 2, and it's the thing I think Obsidian does really well, and that's their NPCs, specifically their
Yeah.
companions.
They're companions. I agree.
And
Are you gonna play Avowed?
so, fun part about that, I didn't learn about Avowed until last week.
Oh, okay.
And
Well, it
so,
comes out in like a week. I
I
think you'll love
know.
it based on
I-
our conversations.
yeah. Um, it is on my radar now, especially because it takes place in the Pillars of Eternity universe.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm interested in because I've played both of those.
Okay.
And
I
I
don't think it has heavy ties. I think it's just in the world.
and
So
if
I
it
don't want to get your hopes
well,
up on it.
even if it's in the world, if
But it is connected.
I would love just one thing from them, and that's if you could port your save data from Pillars of Eternity 2 just for the idea, because in the second one you become a god,
Oh,
and like you are a main staple, you become a main staple god
wow.
of their pantheon, and I want to see if that tracks over because
I
there's
don't think it does.
a lot of like major choices for Pillars of Eternity 2 that like fundamentally shape that universe
Hmm. Okay.
on like political scales and stuff like that. And I want to see how that interacts with it, especially if this is in that world. But I'm also excited that because their races for their characters are really interesting.
Yeah.
The dynamic of classes and how everything works in that world is really as you said in your video for this month, you can dual wield wands and just
Yeah.
run around shooting
Yeah.
wands one at a
The
time.
player choice is great.
And
Yeah.
and I think taking that from the top-down isometric turn-based and turning that into first-person RPG,
Mhm.
it's going to be a transition like Fallout 2 to Fallout 3.
Ooh.
And I think
Okay.
I think that's going to be an interesting transition.
Okay.
And if they pull it off well, they're gonna pull it off great because it's
Yeah.
Obsidian. If not, uh, uh,
Crash and burn.
it's gonna
Well, at
hurt.
least they have Outer Worlds 2 coming,
At least they have Outer
if it
Worlds 2
doesn't
coming.
if it doesn't hit.
So, well, Dan, we've reached that point
Okay.
where I'm gonna turn the floor over to you. Do you have anything you want to promote for yourself? You got anything special coming up?
Oh, okay. Well, my normal stream schedule, like we've mentioned it during the podcast, but I stream every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's always Fortnite with my family. So my brothers and my wife join. It's a lot of yelling at each other, a lot of laughing. We're not bad. We get a couple dubs every stream. So that's Tuesday nights for me. And then every Sunday morning is a variety stream. That's at 10 a.m. Eastern. That's lots of coffee, lots of action adventure games. So we are finishing Dragon Age Veilguard this coming Sunday. I am not stopping the stream until we roll credits on it. So we can move on. However long that takes, that's what we're doing. And then on YouTube, I make a monthly series called Games to Watch. That is just a game calendar for each month for you, just letting you know all of the new games coming out. Can go anywhere from an indie game all the way up to a AAA title. So that's a little about me. And then we know each other from Threads. So
Yeah.
I'm on every text platform. I'm on Threads, Blue Sky, Twitter,
You're one of the few.
Instagram, TikTok,
I was about
YouTube.
to,
Like I'm everywhere.
I was about to say you're one of the few that I've actually had to make sure I had the plug right for Twitter
Yeah.
because you're the only one that you're the first one in a while that I've had to actually like tag on Twitter because I know you're there.
Yeah. I try to be everywhere, and I am everywhere at the Dan Good Show. So that's my plug.
Yeah, Dan at the Dan Good Show.
Yep, I got it everywhere. I nailed it.
Good. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure having you tonight.
Yes. Thank you
Uh,
so much for having me.
of
It's super
course.
fun.
We should definitely plan like a gaming collab sometime soon. Find
Yeah.
something to
I
play.
didn't realize we like played everything the same. So like,
Oh,
yes, that would be
yeah.
fun.
So,
Like our gaming tastes are way more aligned than I realized they were going to be, which is great.
I think the only thing we didn't touch on was probably 4K strategies and management games, which are my like wheelhouse.
That's great because that's not my wheelhouse.
I
So
I love a game where I can sit there
that's why
and
we didn't touch on it.
I love a game where I can sit there for hours and just be like, yes, move my army this way. Or hello, I'm building a city now.
Yeah.
But we definitely should plan something soon. But
Yeah.
again, it has been a pleasure having you here at the arcade. As always, everybody, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast, practically everywhere you can get a podcast, you can find me now.
Excellent. Yeah. Awesome.
The only thing is, like, I know Apple Podcast doesn't have my first episode for whatever reason.
That's rude.
That it's weird. But as always, everyone, I'm just glad to have you here, and thank you. Goodbye and good night.
Bye, everybody. Happy Sunday.